And I'm live. Oh, Vagrant Theta says, don't know such a poem. Okay, not sure what that's about, but let me know if you can hear me okay, just to check that the audio's alright. Usually is. Oh, it's already 4 of you here. That's good to know. You're not all out there gallivanting for Halloween. Good. Anyway, I thought I'd do a stream, but for the lonely souls that are at home. Wife's out with the kids trick-or-treating, so I'm not actually lonely. I'm nice and quiet. But yeah, I hope that there will be some interaction from you guys. Tell me your thoughts, or ask questions, whatever. Perfect. Thank you, Sam. The audio's good. So let me know if there's any specific topics you want to cover. It's a free-for-all. It's Halloween, All Saints, whatever you want to call it. So, you can ask whatever you want. I won't ban you right away, but blaspheming and all that still probably going to get you banned. But okay, so Yemen just declared war on Israel, fired a bunch of rockets at Eilat, and also called out all the other Arab countries for not joining in and helping the Palestinians. There are various Telegram chats that I follow. Quite a few of them have got like stuff coming out of Gaza that it's heartrending stuff. There's little kids, their face blown off, and it's just fucking horrible. And unlike the 40 babies were beheaded by Hamas nonsense, which they had to admit was, mainstream media admitted that was just made up shit. These are clearly things that are going on, and even if you don't see those things, which they're just gonna give you fucking nightmares, it's quite clear that the civilian population of Gaza is getting bombed to shit by the Israelis. It's there's whole whole city blocks that have just been reduced to rubble. So there's thousands of dead, wounded people, a lot of them children. Palestinians, Gaza Strip has got a lot of the demographics of young children is high. So generally speaking, on average, about a third to maybe even a half of the casualties are kids. And the rest of the world's not really taking it very well. Bolivia's cut ties with Israel because of the war crimes they're committing in Gaza, according to what the Bolivian government has said. Belgium, the workers, the union workers of Belgium have said, you're not going to be, we're not going to touch anything that has to do with delivering weapons to Israel. So despite the EU bureaucrats being, following the narrative that the USA and Israel are presenting to them, they're essentially, the man in the street is basically saying, fuck this, we've had enough of this. The Israeli guys at the UN meeting wore like, Nazi-era yellow stars, and nobody gave a crap. And I think even less and less people are giving a crap, and they're starting to figure out that, their narrative of like, the ridiculous shit they come up with. The president of Israel has basically said that, civilian Palestinians are legitimate targets. He's just flat outright said that, which is essentially, saying genocide is okay. Now, if genocide is okay for the goose or for the Palestinian, guess what? Genocide is okay for the Jew, or the gander. So, I don't know. I think it's a pretty silly way to go about things, but that's where we are now. The thing is that, let's call it a worst case scenario. So what happens? Egypt, Turkey. Turkey is the big player here. Syria, Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia's sort of got quite a lot of America sort of things. But if Saudi Arabia and or Turkey both just said, fuck this, we've had enough, we're going to attack Israel, well, then we can be seriously thinking about proper World War III. America's got a lot of battleships in the Mediterranean currently. I don't think they're just going to sit there and do nothing. They might. But I think if Israel starts getting carpet bombed to the same degree that they're bombing Gaza, I think the American military in the Mediterranean is probably going to react, probably as a result of being pushed by the neocons in the USA. Tides of Truth says, oh, watch the anti-Semitism. Yeah, of course. I mean, we don't want to be anti-Semites in any way, shape, or form, of course. It's quite interesting, I think, that when Israel's politicians call for essentially the genocide of the Palestinians, the mass media is pretty much silent on it. But apparently in Paris, I don't know if it's true or not, there are Star of Davids being painted on Jewish people's homes. And who's doing it, I don't know. I don't know whether this is legitimate stuff because, I haven't really looked into it. But that's big news, I mean, you don't want possibly Muslim guys like stenciling Star of Davids on Jews that live in Paris. That's really bad and sounds anti-Semitic. Bombing the crap out of civilians in Gaza, that's okay apparently. That they're legitimate targets, civilians in Gaza, women, children. That's according to the narrative of Israel, whose politicians are also saying that the Israeli military is the most ethical on the planet. Yeah, that's what they're saying. I mean, at this point, I don't know who believes Israel's bullshit anymore, other than, I don't know, a few boomers, some guys who are on a payroll. I really have no idea. I mean, I don't give a crap who you are. When you're seeing like little kids getting blown up and you're saying that that's okay, I really don't care who you are. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care what that's just fucking wrong. And anyone that says otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, hey, they can have phosphorus bombs, which are a war crime, are illegal throughout the planet, dropped on their fucking head then. Yeah. Ballistic Monk says there was a general who warned us not to be fond of war. His monument was taken down and recently melted. I believe you're talking about General Lee. Yes. I think any honest military man is very well aware that war is hell. It's just bad news. You don't want to go to war. You don't want to be involved in war. You don't want to have war. Any competent person that really knows anything about war will tell you that you don't want to get in one. You don't want to be in one. You don't want to start one. You know. I mean, it's pretty simple shit, really. Hello, Pedro. Woolly Ram says, I'm surprised the muzzle is coming on so fast. The velocity of the muzzle, I believe, is what Woolly's trying to talk about here. And, I'm not, actually. I think the Arab world is sort of teetering on edge, and they were kind of holding off. And I think Yemen, if I'm not wrong, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I think Yemen was or is in a current sort of war situation. Oman is right next to Yemen, so I think Yemen might already be sort of battle hardened, and they're like, fuck it, yeah, one more bunch of people to throw missiles at is no big deal. But I mean, Turkey's Erdogan, the president of Turkey, said we can come at any time, any night. And he's not talking about, bringing Christmas cheer to Israel. And that they the Turkish military is actually really quite competent, quite aggressive, quite, well stocked up. They're not scared, and the general sentiment in Turkey, I think, is pretty much generally that, like, yeah, fuck Israel. So um, I think it could kick off really, really quickly. I don't know what the tinderbox, what the tipping point would be that would get a whole bunch of of Arab countries to join in the fight, but Israel has lobbed, or somebody has lobbed some missiles in Egypt, and I think in Syria, or the American base in Syria got attacked, and the Americans are responding. America slash the powers that be, clown world, whatever you want to call it, is would definitely like to attack Iran. Um, I think if Israel or America starts in on Iran, then I think the rest of the Arab countries are gonna go full in, and then then it's, who knows what can happen from that. Wooly Ram says the mass media has lost its power. To a great extent, they have, yes. The U.S. Air Force is still storing nukes in Turkey. Yeah, but it's pretty hard for you to store nukes in a country that you've supposedly had earthquakes in, possibly by HARP, and where you're not very well liked by the people in general. It's going to be a hell of a thing to try and get those nukes to kick off, So I don't know. It's a very fluid situation. I don't think anybody knows exactly what's going to happen. I don't think even the people that are involved in it, and up to their neck in it, really know what can happen now. I think Israel has miscalculated. I think Netanyahu is totally fucked up, and I think part of it was because he was going to get kicked out. The people in Israel are not happy with Netanyahu at all. There was massive demonstrations just before the October 7th supposed Hamas attack. So there is credible evidence that it's some kind of a green flag or false flag. I mean, the CIA warned Israel 3 times. Egypt warned Israel 3 days before it happened. There's now credible reports of Israeli Defense Force people telling their own military that something was going to happen. Hamas has been admitted to in the past, even by Israel, as being a creature of Israel, and or America, similar to ISIS and so on. So who knows? There are, again, credible reports from Jewish people in Israel that were in that kibbutz that was attacked, saying that it was actually Israeli military firing a tank shell into the kibbutz and soldiers shooting their own people. I don't know. It's, fog of war. I'm not there. I don't know what's true and what's not true. All I'm telling you is what's being reported in various ways, which I think quite a lot of it is quite credible, I think. The things that have been debunked is the 40 babies being decapitated by Hamas. That's a lot of bullshit. That baby having been burnt to a shred, that was a fake nonsense that even Ben Shapiro posted, and it was a photoshopped or AI generated image, and that 4chan got the original and said, oh, here's the original and this is what you did with it. So the only people that seem to be lying through their teeth and just spewing completely absurd, ridiculous, obscene rhetoric seem to be the Israeli Zionists. So I don't know. That's what it's looking like, and the rest of the world seems to be of that opinion too. So Wooly Ram says part of the Palestinian tragedy is that no one really cares about them. Yeah, no one really cares about them because they're a small population. They've been harassed and stomped on for a long, long time. They've been demonized for a very long time. I've met a couple of Palestinians and only a few because they don't have a big population at all. I met a very pretty girl in Canada that was Palestinian, and she was a Christian actually. And they're, I, I don't know, I always found them to be compared to what I had absorbed from the zeitgeist general demonization that they've always been subjected to, probably by Israel and the general media. I always found them to be actually quite decent people. I've never really had a bad experience with a Palestinian. I've never met very many of them. Like I said, I only met a couple of people of them that I had conversations with or whatever, talked a bit, got to know them a bit. But I don't know, they seem relatively decent people to me. And generally speaking, a people that's had a really, really hard, tough, oppressive situation for decades, for generations, kind of like the Soviets, they tend to actually be pretty solid people. That's part of the reason why I like Russians quite a bit, is because they tend to be just direct and straightforward about stuff. And part of that comes out of having, survived the Soviet era. So Vagrant Theta says, would diaspora neocons' hatred of white males override their desire to hire competent defense contractors? In brackets, yes. No, I don't think so. I think that the neocons would like nothing better than to have, Southern boys from Texas or whatever, blonde, blue-eyed Southern boys from Texas go and fight their war. I think that love that idea. I just don't think any people from the traditional U.S. military areas that used to recruit most of the military, I don't think that any of those guys are going to sign up. There's been a mass exodus from the military as a result of the mandates and so on that were enforced on them. And there's a lot of people on Instagram and on Telegram basically saying, if there is a draft, I'll choose to go to jail. They still have to feed me over there, and I'm not going to fight for, Israel no matter what. Doesn't matter. I'll take jail over being drafted. So, and that's not just one or two people saying it. There's a mass of people in the United States saying that. A friend of mine sent me an information that I wasn't aware of, that apparently in World War I, most British people actually dodged the draft. And there was a draft, and most of them just avoided and said, yeah, fuck it, I'm not going. I can tell you right now that in Europe, if they suddenly instilled a draft to go and fight for Israel, in Italy, Spain, France, in France, I think they would actually have civil war if they tried to do that, because there's a huge Muslim population in France. I don't see people going, yeah, let me sign up. They would just be like, yeah, fuck it, I'm just going to hide out in the hills and, go and see my grandma in the little villages, and good luck finding me, sort of thing. I think that's what people would do. Tides of Truth says, haha, but what's with Netanyahu referring to Amalek and destroying the people of darkness? He's gone dark. He always was dark. I mean, have you heard anything about Netanyahu? Have you read my blog? And I put up a couple of little videos about him. There's plenty of stuff. Netanyahu's always been absolutely dark. Talking about the Amalek, for those of you that don't know, biblically the Amalek were the people that should have been wiped out down to the last man, woman, and child. So again, referencing absolute genocide of the Palestinian people as though they were some kind of vermin. Now, you can't advocate, if Israel is advocating genocides, well, you're setting the rules of war. Guess what? If you advocate for genocide, then it's okay to do genocide on you. If you advocate for poison gas, well, then poison gas can be used on you. If you disregard the rules of war, if you commit war crimes and try and pretend that it's okay, well, guess what? Then people can use those things on you. They can do war crimes on you and say it's okay. And I think they miscalculated. I don't think they're very good at maths, despite this, theoretical 115 IQ average, which we know is rubbish. And supposedly them being very good at finances, which, again, I think they're very good at doing certain things. I don't think they're very good at maths, logic, or basic statistics. Because if you look at the whole population of Israel and you look at the population of all the Arab countries surrounding it, I don't think they're being very smart right now. Sam Wereb says, is Syria connected to this yet? Not officially. They're not. They haven't announced anything like, or they're just keeping quiet, watching and observing. If Turkey gets involved, wouldn't that also pull in Russia? I think Russia, Putin has made some very interesting speeches where he's basically saying this is horrific. What's happening in Gaza is bullshit. You guys need to stop this. The level of response is not commensurate with whatever Hamas did. It's clearly just wrong, and you need to stop. It's a humanitarian thing. You're now way crossed over into the side of the wrong, and so he's made some very clear statements about that. I think he even almost got emotional at one point, saying, this stuff is tough to watch, because he's the kind of guy that, like me, would go and look at some things, which doesn't mean he'll enjoy watching it. But he says, we've got to keep emotions out of it, regardless of how bad the stuff is. And it is bad, so they need to stop. Israel needs to call a ceasefire. And Israel is hell-bent on doing what they want to do because they think they're smarter than everybody else. The Zionists in charge think they're going to get their way and they're going to just push through, because that's what they've been doing for 70, 80 years. And it's worked out well for them. It's not going to work out so well for them this time, I don't think. So Russia's relatively far away from it. Yes, they've got guys in Syria, but I think unless the Russian people, the Russian bases, the Russian things that they have in Syria get directly attacked, I think they'll sort of keep a guard up position. And even if they do get attacked, they might just take a defensive stance, because they're like, hey, we've got our Ukrainian front. We don't really want to overtly open another one. I think China will just slowly continue to take over Taiwan relatively peacefully, I hope, and I think. China's already made some overtures to various disputed areas bordering India. Taiwan is just going to become another Tibet, but I think with less bloodshed. Probably so are those areas in India that are being contested. India isn't going to do shit when China takes those bits over anyways. And China, quite funnily, has, or interestingly anyway, on their maps, China has just got rid of Israel. The name of the country, they still have the borders and everything, but the name Israel has just disappeared, which is a very strong political statement, I think. It's not a coincidence. Nothing of that level happens in China by, some guy typing in the wrong thing. That's very clear, very intentional. And I think it would be even more hilarious if they changed the name to Palestine. Roll it back. Sort of, it's, yeah. The fake witch doctor says, hi from G and H. Okay. Not sure I know which G and H, but okay. Oh, I know. Yes. Hello, fake witch doctor. I just figured it out. Sorry, I'm a bit brain stunned today. Sam Wereb says, I understand that Turkey has the largest army over there after Russia. Turkey's got a formidable army, and look, don't. Funnily enough, I figured out that Turkey's a force to be reckoned with. When back in '93, when I went to Japan for the karate stuff with the karate team from South Africa, the Turkish team was like disciplined, hardcore, good fighters. They're not scared, they're not afraid. And then when I went to visit Turkey several years later, I found the people quite amenable. It's sort of like a slightly secularized Islamic country, and I wouldn't want to live there, but it wasn't horrible or anything. I quite enjoyed it. I went to see Egypt, for example, because of the pyramids, and I didn't enjoy Egypt's like general society. I love the pyramids, and I would have liked to spend like a few months like doing our archaeological stuff there, but I didn't enjoy the general society. But in Turkey, I got on with the people quite well. I quite enjoyed them, and they're definitely quite brave, quite courageous. They're not scared type of people, and they're quite effective. When I was there in Turkey, there was actually a couple of demonstrations, and the police force came to like control the rioting. And I was seeing a girl at the time when I was there, and I just clocked this was going to happen because I am situationally aware, and I quickly I walked her into a shoe shop. I was like, oh, let's just check out some shoes, and about 5 minutes later, the cops had done such an effective thing that the shop owners were like, "Oh shit!" and they just rolled down these like what do you call those roll-up things, but they're made of metal, and they kept us in there. They were like, "No, no, no, you stay here. It's not safe out there," and they just closed the shop. And they're like, "Yeah, we'll just wait here." And we could see what was going on. The cops rounded these guys up, like basically handcuffed a couple of them, and just got rid of it. And it was like a military exercise. The demonstration, I don't know what it was about, but the demonstration lasted over like 15 minutes, and then it was disbanded. And it was like after that, the cops were like still there, showing a presence, but just calm, chilled, very disciplined. And we left the shop, and we walked past the cops just like, and I was just looking at them, and I thought, man, these guys are trained. And that's just the cops. So yeah, if Turkey gets involved, Israel is going to have a fucking big problem on their hands. Israel is struggling right now, even though they've got total air superiority. They've got a bunch of tanks. They're still getting their ass kicked, comparatively quite badly by the Hamas rebel guys, or and when they say Hamas, what I don't know. I think it's just random Palestinians that have AKs that are like, "Fuck you guys," Because I mean, if you are in Gaza, whether you were a civilian or not, they're bombing the shit out of you. They're killing your kids. What, you're just gonna sit there and go like, "No, I'm a civilian. I'll just sit this one out," when they bomb the crap out of your house? I'd pick up a gun, you know. Oh, interesting. Wooly Ram says, looks like YouTube is auto-filtering some comments. Sam Wereb says, I'm not seeing the questions he's answering. Interesting. The fake witch doctor says, try switching from top chats to all chats. No improvement. Oh. On a more American position, Ballistic Monk says, young guys don't want to serve a country that hates them, their own. Yeah, and why should you? I mean, never mind if they hate you or not. I avoided military service because I could, and because the very idea of going to some foreign place to kill some random guy who I've got no issues with because some politician tells me to for political gains, political motives that I don't care about, and even if I did, I probably wouldn't understand, and if I did understand, I'd probably be vehemently against them. No. Fuck you. You want to have a war with that guy? You get the uniform on and you go and shoot him. I got no problem with him. I got no problem with Palestinians. I got no problem with Israelis. But I sure as shit ain't going out there to shoot for any of them or get shot for any of them. Fuck that. Gamer Milk says, Happy Saints Day, everyone. To you too. Willie Ram says, thanks. Which doctor can see all the comments now? Oh, okay. Greeny Houdini, hello. Good to see you're holding up. Yeah, I've not been very well, but I'm getting there slowly. Woolly Ram says, Greeny, it's been a while. Welcome back. I think Greeny has also changed her picture, if I remember right. How's the tequila going, Greeny? Greeny says, high percentage of military do not support this war. I don't think anyone with a functioning brain cell supports this war at all. It literally is a full-on Israeli design, and I think they pulled the trigger probably too late, or I don't think there's a way that they're gonna ever fix this where them disappearing Palestinians altogether is gonna be okay with the rest of the world. I don't see that happening. Pedro Russia says there are rumors that they're cleaning up Ukraine to make space for the Jewish diaspora and the movement of Israeli. Yeah, that's been a rumor that's been going on for a while, but so they don't really care if Israel gets destroyed because they plan on having their Khazarian kingdom restored. Some are also planning on running away to China, but their wings were clipped fast. Yeah, these are all rumors. I don't know, I don't think that it's that easy to just disappear a whole population from Israel and move them to Ukraine like nothing's happening. It's not exactly next door. There's a whole bunch of countries in between. You might get the top guys out, but I don't think the population is going to be too happy about that. Woolly Ram says a third exile would shatter modern Judaism. It would cause a fundamental crisis of faith. Yeah, because their expected thing now is that I forget the name. Woolly, correct me if I'm wrong. And actually, Woolly, if you want to come on, if you still have the last link I gave you last time, I don't know if you're free or not, but if you want to come on as a guest, since you are in Israel, feel free, and I'll put you. I think you're probably working, but if not, feel free to pop in. The link is still the same as what I sent you last time if you have it on your Telegram there. But yeah, if I'm not wrong, I think there's a big mosque which I think may already have been affected, that is in a location that is supposed to be where the third temple goes. So the idea is to bomb the crap out of that mosque or make it disappear and then rebuild the third temple. They've already got the 5 red heifers or something. There's a bunch of things that need to happen before their Messiah supposedly arrives, which, it's the Messiah for them, and biblically for all Christians is actually going to be the Antichrist. So it's one of those situations where if your belief is Jewish, then Israel getting sort of wiped out doesn't fit with that story. So I don't think they would just abandon everything and go to Ukraine. Senator Slayer says the war's for Jews. Greeny Houdini says Zionism is satanic. Ironic Keyboard says hello, and hello back. Sam Wereb says switching to all chat did in fact fix it. I'm an idiot. Oh well, we've all been there, sir. Greeny Houdini, no tequila, but I have a pickle juice infused vodka from Texas. I drove to the border, and it's not how the media is showing. I'm assuming you mean the border of Texas. Tell us about it. I don't really know what's going on there other than supposedly thousands of guys are just coming across. Pickle juice infused vodka. So you're pickling what, gherkins with vodka? That is disgusting. I mean, ugh. I believe you're quite a pretty lady, but the kind of things you do, it's pickle, like what? Gherkin pickled with vodka? It's Greeny, I'm sorry, but that's just stuff that makes a maggot gag. Ugh. Pickle juice is highly underrated. What is wrong with you, Sam? Yeah, Woolly Ram's at work, not the best time for a chat. Yeah, if anything happens on Temple Mount, well, hopefully we'll meet you guys in purgatory. Okay, well, I hope you survive it, matey. Oh, one other thing. I need to thank those of you that have done little, what do you call them, super chats, because I have added to this, not quite one for one, but almost. There you go. There's €100. About 10% of the way to getting a Colt 911. Although, given the war is happening, I don't know. I'm halfway considering going for a Colt 1903, which is a much smaller caliber, but it is kind of a pretty cool gun. And sorry for the sudden shift. Guys, keep going. Talk about what you want to talk about. I'll get back to you. But the Colt 1903 is quite a cool little gun. I think it was one of the guns that Bonnie and Clyde used. I think Bonnie used it to free Clyde from prison, and then Clyde had one in his pocket when he got killed. But aside from that, it's just a pretty cool little gun. It's 7.65, so same like the PPK. But I've been watching quite a few videos by a guy that he's got a huge following. He's a massive following of like millions of followers, 2-3 million followers or something like that. And he's called Honest Outlaw, and he does reviews on various guns. And he actually is, I think, probably one of the better gun reviewers I've ever seen on YouTube. He's straight, flat out honest. He just tells you what he thinks, tells you why he thinks it. Yeah, 7.65 and 32 ACP are basically the same round. He's given me quite a bit to think about, because he likes like subcompacts and pretty small guns, usually 9mm. He uses Glocks, but he is a ginger, so he doesn't have a soul, and that's probably why he does it, because the sin of using a Glock is I just don't like Glocks. I don't like them. I don't like how they feel. I don't like how I shoot with them. I know they're reliable. I know they're like, whatever, but I just don't like them. Fuck it. If you can't... Miyamoto Musashi said it best. If you are a warrior, you should have some love for your weapons and some sense of dignity and care for them. And you should enjoy them to some extent. And I just couldn't enjoy having a Glock as my carry gun or something. It's just, no, it's wrong. I'll rather go out with a beautiful revolver. I don't care if it's, slower, runs out of ammo, whatever. At least I died with dignity. They... wait, sorry, I'm going to be rambling, so just you guys got to shoot questions and stuff and comments so that I can remember where I was at. Where are we? Greeny says, LOL, the pickle juice makes it tolerable. What? You're actually drinking gherkin pickle juice with vodka in it. Oh, man. I probably wanted, before I was married in my totally deranged and hedonistic and degenerate days, I probably would have wanted to meet you just to see what kind of sick stuff you get up to. Ballistic Monk says, can't quite figure on how that tastes. I'm guessing, but donkey ass? Something like that. Dill pickles, Kurgan. What's a dill? I don't know what a dill is. Greeny says, yeah, I just took on a road trip, drove 4,000 miles all the way up to the Mexico border, Texas and Cali. New Mexico. I've never been to New Mexico, but I always kind of had a soft spot for it. I've been to Arizona, I've been to Flagstaff, Houston. I liked Flagstaff. I've been to California, and California, I think, is the name. And yeah, I didn't enjoy California at all. The United States is so huge. It's got such a diverse range of geography. It's not even, you can't even, I don't think I could even describe. I would have liked to have seen Florida maybe, and Texas. Originally, when I was a kid, I wanted to see Alaska and the Yukon for whatever reason. I read about it when I was a kid. Now that I'm 54, yeah, I don't really care about Alaska. It's too cold. I'm sure it would be fun. If I had endless money, whatever, if I suddenly become a billionaire tomorrow and I can go there with my own jet plane, burning coal all the way through, with all my kids, with like the best, coolest, like fluffy jackets that don't keep me, warmers that don't keep me cold, and I could go and meet some friends and shoot 50 BMGs, okay, maybe I'd go. But short of that, I don't know. What the hell is a dill pickle? That's bothering me now. Holy Ram says, I used to load my martini with Syrian olives. Oh, wait, are you talking about a martini? I might love you again, Greeny Houdini. A vodka martini, with olive, that I can do that. That's, yeah, that's a different story. Woody Ram says, sour goes nicely with booze. Pickle juice cocktails, gamer milk. There's a bunch of degenerates in here today. Suppose it's Halloween, but come on, guys. Ballistic Monk says, hammerless pocket gun, a classic. It is a classic. And oh, sorry, I was talking about Honest Outlaw. That's it. His name is Chris something. But he shoots these smaller guns, and he does reviews on like odd guns. I also found out that if I ever get the money to go to Alaska, I'm also going to buy a BRNO chambered in FK 7.5, which I think is basically fuck you 7.5, because it's essentially a rifle round in like a really modern space looking gun that's, I think hits harder than a 44, or about as hard as a 44 Magnum, but it's got like a lot less recoil, and it's awesome. It looks awesome. I'd want one, but it's like around the $8,000/euro mark. So it's like, yeah, I think I'll buy a tractor first, But by the way, if you guys want to support, I tell you what, I can pick up a hammerless 1903 for under $300. There's $100 here. If you guys help me sponsor it, I'll go for that one, and then I'll see about the 1911 later. Unless you're all totally against it, and I need to get the 1911 first. But to get I've been looking like secondhand 1911s. There is one of 1903 that I can pick up for about $300. But I don't know. I kind of want both, but if I could only pick one. Oh, that's a whole other show. If I could only have one gun. Sam says, I love that pistol. Ballistic Monk says, Colt still sells them for $1,500. I think that's a new build. I think I'm falling in love with Greeny Houdini. Better get my wife in here so that she can, hold me back. Because Greeny says, I carry a 1911 Paratrooper edition. Okay. Not a fan of the Paratrooper edition, but fine. It's good enough. You're a girl. It's good. I'm very impressed. Very, very impressed. Anyway, this Honest Outlaw guy has kind of changed my mind a little bit about things, because we have our slight differences, but he's one of the few guys that reviews revolvers. He's one of the few guys that says if he could only have one gun, he would seriously consider the Ruger GP100 as well as the Smith & Wesson. He says he'd pick a Smith & Wesson over a Ruger. I've never owned a Smith & Wesson, so maybe, I think my dad had a 357 Smith & Wesson when I was a kid, which I shot a few times, but I don't remember if it was a Smith & Wesson. But I know the Ruger. I've used the Ruger a lot. I trust the Ruger. And he said, it is a very reliable gun. He seems to prefer the Smith & Wesson. And there's another gun guy that was with him that said the same thing. So maybe the Smith & Wesson is better. I don't know. But the thing is, he shoots also like small caliber guns. He shoots 7.65, 32 ACPs. He shoots like 9 mils, like subcompact 9 mils. And the boy can shoot. Let me tell you, he can shoot. He's like another one of these guys like Hancock 45. And Hancock 45, I mean, that man, I would hate to be on the receiving end of Hancock 45 shooting at me with anything. That guy, he hits the gong that's way out there. He hit the gong with one of these hammerless 1903 Colt 1903s. He's a freak of nature, that man. I mean, I don't know how many rounds that guy's fired in his life, but he's kind of, there are guys like that have just grew up with guns, shot them all their life, like my dad with the rifle. I don't want to be on the receiving end of that man firing a normal stock, just pulled it off the shelf, 7mm or 223 or 308 or anything at a KOA. I do not want to be on the receiving end of my dad shooting at me a KOA with anything, because I've seen him like do stuff that is just like, what the fuck? That's straight out of Hollywood kind of shit. So, you know, and I wanna spend more time at the range. But thinking about it realistically, okay, forget, you know, the zombie apocalypse scenario. Yeah, sure, in a zombie apocalypse scenario, whatever, I'd go strapped all the time. I'd probably have the Ruger on one hip and a Colt 1911 on the other hip, just because I can. When I worked with a gun, I had a GP100 or a 357 Magnum with a 4-inch barrel. You know, if we're talking apocalypse, fuck it, I'll have the 6-inch barrel and just strap it to my leg like a cowboy. You know? Who cares? But if you're talking concealed carry, you know, again, there's a lot of options. Europe is not as gung-ho as, you know, funnily enough, when I was working in South Africa as a close protection, I trust the revolver more, because I had a USP, by the way. I had a Heckler & Koch USP, which this honest outlaw goes, oh, he rates the Heckler & Koch USP as one of the most reliable guns ever. I don't. I will never own a Heckler & Koch USP again, because I had a Heckler & Koch USP in 40, and that thing misfired regularly. It just, I don't know if there was something wrong with the firing pin or what, and I've, you know, that honest outlaw guy, he'll shoot his guns like hundreds of rounds before he cleans them. I'm, you know, slightly autistic, so if I fire a gun one shot, I clean it. And so the gun was always impeccably clean, but sometimes it just marked the you know, the firing pin just dented a little bit the center fire of it, and didn't set the ammo off. So it was like, I didn't trust it. I carried it once or twice, and then when that started happening, I never touched it again. I just left it in the safe. And yeah, I'll never trust one of those again. But you know, the thing is, funnily enough, this honest outlaw guy also carried a 1911 for a while as a carry gun. He says it's a bit too heavy and it's uncomfortable. I understand that, because I carried that Ruger GP100 for years, and I had it on me all the time. It does get a bit heavy, it does get a bit uncomfortable, but I adapted to the gun rather. And I have sciatica sometimes, you know, because of training and like kicks and injuries and whatever, but I just stuck with it. So I don't think the weight of a, say, 1911 or whatever would bother me. The main thing in Europe is the number of rounds that I have in. Has never really bothered me, because again, same as in South Africa, that's part of the reason why I don't go back to range. My thing is like shot placement. Is like, I don't give a crap if I only got 6 rounds. As long as I'm putting, you know, 2 center mass with a 357 Magnum, or 1 in the head and 1 center mass, you're done, you know. So, and back then, I certainly had the confidence to do that in high stress situation. Wouldn't have been an issue at all. Now, you know, time has gone on. I spent like a better part of 2 decades without picking up a gun, because I was in the UK. So I want to get back up to whatever level I can get back up to. But the thing is, you know, in Italy, you know, carry permits are very difficult to have. I don't have one. I don't think that I necessarily need one, but whatever. Let's say it gets to the point where it's not quite the apocalypse, but you know, you want to have a gun on you for whatever reason, and you can, for whatever, you know, let's say it becomes legal, or you know, whatever, something like that. I probably still wouldn't care much about having 20 shots or 16 or 15 shots over having 8 shots or 5 shots. And I think the Colt 1911 is a better gun, a carry gun. I think it's, you know, it's flat, so it doesn't print as much. I like full-sized guns because I've got big hands. You know, I'm 6'2", but I've also got quite big hands, so the grip on a gun is, if it's a little gun, it's not really great for me. I can shoot the PPK quite well, but if I'm not careful, it'll bite. Not that I care. It's not going to affect my shooting if it bites a bit, because, if you're in a shootout, you won't even feel it. But I don't know. I found myself thinking, well, what if I had to have a carry gun in Italy? Let's say I got a carry permit for whatever reason. Let's say I was going to carry a carry gun in Italy. What would it be? And I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of the 9mm, and if I'm gonna, maybe a little pocket gun would be the thing to go for. So I'm revisiting that. And then I had another question in my own head, which was like, okay, what if you had only one handgun? Let's say you could only have one handgun. And then I always do these things in my own head, right? Like, okay, what if you could only have one handgun and you're in the, Cadillacs and dinosaurs, Cenozoic era with those dinosaurs and shit. And then I always be like, yeah, I'd probably want maybe like a 454 Casual. Yeah, it's a single action, but who cares, because I can take a T-Rex with it. But then if you do have a 454 Casual and you have to draw on humans, which they also exist in Cadillacs and dinosaurs, it'll probably be a bit slow, probably won't be quite, the kick on that thing is huge, so lining up the next shot will take you a lot longer. Well, what about a 1911? I'm fanatical about keeping my gun clean, so I don't think that would be a big deal. It would probably be very reliable. 1911s are known to be pretty reliable anyway. Yeah, I can't take a T-Rex though, or even just, just those precomponentos, like chicken type things, okay. But, what if you get a Triceratops charging you, or even just a Stegosaurus? 45 is not going to do it, but probably be good for humans. So, I was thinking about this stuff and like, well, and it's obviously, one gun doesn't cover all possibilities, but if I could only have one handgun, I mean, I don't know. I've been thinking about this most of today, actually, and if I could only have one handgun, yes, I do like the Ruger, but again, one handgun for everything. The Ruger 4-inch, the Ruger GP100 with 4 inches, because then it's okay to carry. But then a 6-inch is better, but then that's not okay to carry. It's not so easy, It's like, but would I go for a revolver, or would I change my mind now? So I don't know. I'm revisiting everything, and I'm thinking, maybe I just stick with a little hammerless 1903. That might be enough. I don't know. I'm having a rethink about all sorts of things. Ballistic Monk is in Florida. Good for you, sir. I believe Florida is a pretty cool place to be as far as the United States goes. Greeny Houdini says San Bernardino and Los Angeles traffic was horrible. Ugh. Ironic Keyboard says, I love Texas, but crazy hot in the summer. Yeah, I'm not worried about heat. I lived in Africa for many years, where you could literally cook an egg on your car. Ballistic Monk says, we're headed to the best months of the year for Florida weather. Tides of Truth says, it's all about time and resources. Woolly Ram says, speaking of beautiful revolvers, what do you make of Italian love for cowboy movies? I recently learned that some of the seminal cowboy movies were made by Italians in Italy. Most of them were. Most of the Clint Eastwood stuff was done by Sergio Leone. Sergio Leone was a very well-known director of cowboy movies. We like guns. Most of the replica of cowboy guns are made in Italy. All the like black powder stuff, Piotta and Uberti are well known for making replica all the guns, the Winchesters, the 6-shooters, the Colt Navies that I love. I love the Colt Navy. It's 1851 Colt Navy is probably one of my favorite. I would maybe say the most favorite looking handgun. And I could pick one up. I wouldn't go for black powder now, just because, again, kids, time. Maybe when I'm an old man and the kids have left home, I would have an 1851 in black powder. But Uberti makes an 1851 conversion, the Richardson version, which is a 38 special. Looks like an 1851, but loads like the Colt with the little lever that pushes them out one at a time, like a Colt Army. But it still has the octagonal barrel. Looks really cool. They're about $700. And now if you're going to tell me, okay, hammerless 1903 for $300, Colt Tuberti in 38 Special 1851 Navy for $700, or Colt 1911 for like a grand and a bit, you'd put me in a very tough spot. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's really hard. Just send me $2,000, guys, and then I can get all three. Help. You know, there's this guy on Italian like YouTube things. There's this guy. He's always the same guy, but he does all these things with this pitiful voice. There are children starving in Syria, and it's the coldest winter. And then same guy, different like T-shirt. And he's like, there are children in Africa dying because the water. You know, the same guy. There are orphans in China. You know, and it's always the same guy. And I'm like, the fuck, dude. You know, can't you change guys? I mean, you know, at least change the guy, make it a bit more. And I'm like, I'm thinking I should be myself with the glasses, without the glasses. There's a desperate need for a Colt 1911. If you can afford even just a few dollars, just make this bald man have a 1911. Just think, his whole life he hasn't owned a Colt 1911, preferably an original before the 1924 version. But even if not that, even if it's an A1 or maybe even a copy, I don't want to go to like non-Colt because that's kind of just wrong and teasing the man. But you know, if you can afford just a few dollars, you know, in this Halloween, think of the poor gentleman that has never owned a Colt 1911. And then with the glasses, like, there is a crisis in Italy right now. The man who's trying to start the Kurganet does not have a Colt 1911. We appeal to you in this moment of need, you know, that sort of thing. Give generously. Mighty Bear says Smith & Wesson is better than Ruger, +1. Okay, why? I don't know. I've never shot a Smith & Wesson, so I'm not gonna say. Sam Wettup goes, dill is a seasonic herb for the pickle juice. It's a savory taste exactly like sweet gherkin pickles. Oh, I know what dill is. It's that sweet. Look, it's not as bad as that ass lint of homeless people that people call cilantro, and some human beings actually put it on food for reasons known best to themselves. Coriander, also known as, it's a disgusting thing that I don't, you know, it's some vile thing that no one should ever put in their mouth. And dill is kind of not too far off it. Among competition shooters, the Smith & Wesson is still considered as having the best trigger and indexing system. I used to compete with a 6.86 chambered in .357 Magnum. The 6.86 is one of the ones that the Honest Outlaw guy reviews, and he swears by it. I always liked the 6.86. I always thought of possibly getting one. But when I got the Ruger in South Africa, I think the Smith & Wesson, because it was an American import, was a lot more expensive for some reason than the Ruger. I don't know why. Maybe it's a quality thing. I've never had a problem with the Ruger, so. Greeny Houdini says, it's always cheaper to assemble them ourselves. I like the Golden Boy lever action rifle, just feels right. Man, we have the same tastes in guns, Greeny Houdini. You know, if I ever become a Mormon, I'm gonna see if the wife lets you be wife number 2. I like that, I think it's called Yellow Boy rather than Golden Boy. But yeah, I love that. That's on my list of guns I want to have before I drop dead. Along with a Colt Navy 1851. Ballistic Monk. Everybody I knew in Europe over the last 30 years who wanted a gun had a gun or two. Yeah. In Europe, there's plenty of guns. You know, people can have guns. You know, that this idea that Europeans can't have guns is mostly nonsense. We have some restrictions on the ammunition that you can have. You know, it's like in Italy they've made it like not cool to have like hollow points, core bonds, hydroshocks, all that stuff. So it's kind of mostly full metal jacket stuff, which kind of sucks. But to be fair, you know, if you have to shoot somebody with a full metal jacket .357 Magnum or a Hydroshock 357 Magnum. Yeah, it makes a bit of a difference. And I know because I've tested this stuff when I was in South Africa, Corbons was my preferred load. But you know, another thing that people don't get, even if you just carry Corbons, which were expensive at the time, you know, for me, I still shot them, you know. And I remember I walked into a gun shop once and I said, okay, I've got a box of Corbons. He goes, a box? I mean, like, fuck, dude, you know, why don't you just keep them in the mag and that's it? And I was like, well, no, I want Corbons because I shoot Corbons. And the guy behind the store looked at me and goes, yeah, but you must control your urges. You know, he's just assumed I was shooting people. So I was like, no, man, I shoot that at the range too, you know, because you train the way you mean to, you know, to be. Like, if you train X but you do Y, when shit hits the fan, you're not going to react the same. So, fella says, I hear that Tisa's 1911s are good enough for the price to scratch the 1911 itch. Look, I picked up some 45s that are sort of 1911 clones, but you just don't know me, sir, do you? You should read what I wrote on writing. It's called On Writing, like it's a blog post I did years ago, but it explained my quirks of writing. For example, I spell skeptic with a K, which is considered a spelling mistake. But no, because I like the original stuff. I spell color as it was meant to be spelled by the British, who invented the language, and you Americans bastardize it. You know, I always go back to the original. For me is more important. I don't know why, and it's with everything. It's like from samurai swords to Colt 1911s. My preferred Colt 1911 would be the original one that came out, you know, from 1911 till 1924. Before the A1 has got the beveled trigger, the root to the trigger becomes a little bit beveled, and you've got a slightly rounded back strap. I don't like that. I prefer the original one. And if I'm going to have a Colt 1911, I kind of really want it to be a Colt. Plus, I picked up these other, like I went to a gun shop and I picked up various different 45s. There are some 45 clones that, man, that trigger is good. The more affordable one, which was $700, the trigger was shit compared to the other two clones. So, you know, if I'm going to have a shitty kind of trigger, at least I want it to be a Colt 1911. Ballistic Monk says some ammo companies will skimp and use rifle primers when they can't get pistol primers, and some pistols, mostly striker fired types, can't reliably fire them. Maybe that's that might have been the case. I don't know what it was. I just fucking gave up on it. Ballistic Monk says most defensive shooting scenarios, the defender fires 2-shot. Yeah. To be honest with you, it depends on the situation, but you know, mine wouldn't have really been a defensive shooting scenario because I was the third member of a team, the minimum of 3 people, and I was the third guy who was undercover, so people wouldn't know that I was there. I was the guy that, like, if shit happens, then I'm the guy that stays behind and keeps shooting bad guys until they're all dead or I am. So in my situation, it would have really not been so much a defensive situation as an offensive situation. So the bad guys would be attacking the client, or, you know, the other guys that are obviously working with the client. I was not an obvious person in that whole scenario. So I wouldn't be the first guy targeted, but I would be targeting the guys who started the shootout. So from my perspective, it wouldn't be a defensive scenario, and even then it would probably be 2 shots, because it would be like doom doom. I'd train myself to do like head chest, like double tap. But I think, you know, some people do that double tap, like center body mass and then headshot. I did it the other way around because I knew that my first round would be like the most likely to be spot on, and my second round, if I was a bit off center mass, would be enough to like get rid of the problem. So it would be, you know, it would be like double tap, unless, and you know, my reaction time was good. Unless the first shot is like a good headshot, then don't have to worry about that guy anymore. I wouldn't do the double tap. But I basically trained myself muscle memory, just do doom doom. But I'm also smart, you know, I've got reflexes that are good enough that if the first doom is like a clear, you know, pink cloud, head becomes a pink cloud, I wouldn't waste the second shot on him. So in that scenario, generally speaking, unless the guys have got freaky reflexes, and I do have freaky reflexes, at least the first two would be down. And most likely the first three would be down. And if you're in a scenario where you've got more than 3 armed attackers firing, you got a pretty bad scenario. So it would be like 3 guys down, then I'd take cover, reload, or depending on how many people are left, you know, depending if I have a shot left or not. So it's like, yeah. Ballistic Monk says 460 Roland, 220 grain at 1,600 feet per second says a lot. Good prices. I'm not sure what you were talking about there. I'm not familiar with the 460 Roland. So I don't know that caliber or gun. Wooly Ram says, weird fact of the day, disliking the taste of cilantro is genetic. Yes, I know that. The people who don't eat cilantro / coriander are human beings. The people that do eat it are obviously some kind of, you know, proof that some people come from monkeys, clearly. Fella says, I feel your pain. Teaser's 1911s are like $300 here. Bastards. You dirty bastards. Now I'm gonna have to look. Oh, is that the Turkish one? The Teasers? They don't import them here. I think I looked at that. If I remember, the Teasers are a pretty decent looking copy of the 1911, but they don't import them in Italy, sadly, from Turkey. I don't know why. Just next door, really. Sam Werb says Kimber is probably the gold standard for 1911 pattern pistols. Very expensive though. Okay. They didn't really come on my radar much. Ballistic Monk, the prices you cite on those Colt guns sound very good. They are very good. There's not a lot of them around. They're all secondhand, but you know what? If you know guns a little bit, unless the gun has really been treated like shit, a secondhand gun is not necessarily a bad thing. Most people in Europe don't put like thousands and thousands of rounds through them. Now with a Colt 1903, it could be old, it could be like, you know, falling apart, whatever. It's hard to know. And most of these are private sales, so they do go through a gun shop, because if they're far away, they'll ship it to a gun shop, and then you have to go pick it up and whatever. So you don't really get to play with the gun unless you're willing to fly over or whatever, go check it out. You know, which for like a $300 gun, you're not going to spend like $300 to go and see it. So it's kind of a hit and miss. Maybe it's got a shitty pitted barrel, and you know, getting another barrel is not like an easy thing to do here and so on, because they're like, I think they're the part that is, you know, gun barrels are got serial numbers on them, and they're considered kind of almost like a whole gun, so it's kind of an issue. But yeah, guys, you know, give generously. Come on, they're good prices. Where's the super chat? I'm gonna become the begging Kurgan, but just for guns, okay? Not for anything else. Green Houdini says, I wanted a 9mm, so I got a Celtic Sub 2000. She's pretty cool, I guess. I'm guessing by Celtic you mean oh, it's not Celtic, I think you mean. I don't know, that I've never owned a Celtic. That Honest Outlaw guy says the Celtic guns make some really cool ideas, but sometimes their build quality is shitty, so I don't know. I quite like the guy, because he tells you when, oh, I just like this gun, so I like it, fuck it, I don't care if other people don't. And he's definitely got a shitload of guns, and he gets to like review a shitload of guns, different ones and so whatever. So Woolly Ram says, what's the practical difference between Corbon full metal jacket and Hydroshock? Okay, a full metal jacket basically means it's covered in copper. So it's got a full metal jacket, so it's got a full copper jacket, so it's lead inside with a full copper jacket. And essentially on something like a 357 Magnum that's going through a person or something similar, unless it hits like a pretty big bone, it's probably just going to go straight through with a slight deformity. What that means is that the wound channel is basically just going to be a hole that's poked into you with minimal. Fellas just donated $5 for guns only. Thank you, sir. And I try and match whatever you guys give me. So, you know, I got like, I think it was like $60 from the super chats from the last time. And $60 is a bit less than 60 euro. So I matched it with like 50 euro, made it 100 euro. So it's 10% of the way to the Colt 1911, 33% of the way to the Colt 1903. We'll leave the Colt Navy 1851 out of it for now because I'm on a semi-auto binge now. But so sorry. So the full metal jacket basically would go through. You create a wound channel that's pretty much the size of the bullet. There's going to be a little bit of expansion because the 357 Magnum is a pretty fast round. So there's going to be a little bit of a temporary cavity, but not a big one. Hydroshock, in my experience, is a 50-50. Hydroshock it's a lead bullet that's got, so I'm using a battery here. So imagine that the colored part of the battery is copper. So a Hydroshock, the front of a Hydroshock looks a little bit like this. So it's got a copper, you know, except it's conically shaped, but it's got copper around, but the center point doesn't have copper, it's lead, and it's got like a little pylon of lead, like pointing out. So imagine a hole, like a crater, right? Like a crater on the front of the bullet, but in the center of the crater, there's like a little pylon of lead sticking out of it. And the idea is that it's traveling fast enough that once that hits meat, it expands the round and it makes a much bigger cavity. So like, let's say, you know, a 357 round, there's a shell, you know, it's a little bit smaller than my finger. Consider tissue damage, whatever. Let's say the whole of a 357 is roughly about the same as my little finger. With a Hydroshock, if it works out properly, the leftover cavity hole is probably going to be the size of my thumb, but it expands while it's going through, so it creates a bigger shock wave. That's why it's called Hydroshock, because it creates a high, you know, most of the body's water. It creates a temporary cavity that shocks the organs like the heart, lungs, whatever, causes damage, bursts arteries and whatever. Now in rifles, like a 300 Win Mag, you definitely get this temporary cavity, which is huge. You know, on a 300 Win Mag, which has got like maybe a little bit of a hollow point, you're gonna get a cavity, a temporary cavity about that size. And you think, oh, it's just temporary. Yeah, well, you know, if you're getting your lungs and your heart and your aorta being moved by, you know, 6 inches inside your body, it doesn't feel good for it. It's not a good thing. Revolver round isn't going to create that size of a thing, but it's going to be pretty big. My experience with a Hydroshock is that it's a 50-50, because if it gets clothing, if it gets something that like closes up that front little hole, it tends to sort of go through you pretty much the same as a solid, as a full metal jacket. But about half the time it actually does expand properly, and then it's like in a phone book, your entry wound is the size of the bullet, but your exit is like, you know, it takes out a chunk that big. So Hydroshock is about 50% of the time reliable. A Corbon, similar sort of principle, but it's more like it expands and becomes kind of like almost like a rosette, you know, like the copper also expands in a way that becomes like think of it a little bit like a ninja star that's spinning inside you. And again, so the most of the energy is delivered into the body, and the wound channel is bigger and so on. And Corbons are considered, you know, one of the better stopping rounds. 357 Magnum is one of the best stopping rounds for humans anyways. So with a Corbon, it becomes pretty deadly. I hope I've explained that. A fella confirms that yes, the Turs is a Turkish gun. Greenie Houdini is going on about her 9mm and says, only because 9mm is the most common caliber you will find in case of an apocalypse. Yes, it is. But in Italy, in American households, yes, it is. But in Italy, that's not quite the case. I've found out they've just recently changed the law, apparently, because in Italy, the 9mm 9x19 Parabellum was considered a military round, that they don't want the civilians using military rounds, so they created this other 9x21mm round. I forget which one is the military one, but anyway, that's 2mm more or less, so it wouldn't feed in a civilian gun. So there was this other 9mm that was just a bit different, but apparently that law is now being done away with this year. So hopefully, the 9mm military round will be able to be used in pistols here as well. So because of that, the civilian 9mm round wasn't as common as the military round, so there was no apocalypse benefit to having a 9mm in Italy until now, apparently. And I don't like 9mm generally. Look, you guys need to understand, I don't want to boast, I don't want to, it's not about, me knowing everything or anything like that. But I grew up with guns. In my family, because we grew up pretty wild in Africa from a very young age, we shot a lot of different things. And I mean that in both, terms of the weapons that we shot and the creatures that we shot. And from that experience, my life experience, and I don't think anyone that has got a similar life experience is going to disagree with me. For one-shot stops, the two most important things are, one, your shot placement, first of all. But a close second is the biggest caliber that you can fire comfortably with, without it affecting your aim and so on, and your recovery position and your recovery time. Use the biggest caliber you can comfortably shoot well, because shot placement and size of the gun makes a difference. Greenie Houdini can confirm this. Any woman that says that size doesn't matter is lying out of her teeth. Size does matter. And having said that, ironically, I'm here sitting thinking, yeah, maybe 7.65 is enough, 32 ACP, who cares? And it is kind of who cares, because whatever, if an intruder jumps into my home and I happen to have my 22 closer than my whatever 357, with the 22 you can just go pa, 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 and send like 10 rounds straight to your face. It's not gonna do you much better than one 357 round straight to your face, So shot placement is still the number one thing. And then if you go and look at the statistics on handguns, there isn't actually all that much difference between getting shot with a 22 and getting shot with a 45 ACP in terms of people dying from the first shot. I mean, there is a difference, but it's not, it's not movie difference. It's not like you get shot with a 45, you don't like fly back or anything. I know of a guy in South Africa who got attacked he was a guy in a club. He was a bouncer, and he carried, because you can in South Africa, and some random black dude that, I don't know, he said he didn't even know the guy. He didn't know why the guy did this. Just came at him shooting with a 38 special revolver, like just shooting at him. He was surprised. He got the guy missed. He pulled out his 45, managed to get one shot off, which they found out later was full center body mass, went straight through the guy's lung, and then the guy was on top of him. So he fired the 5 or 6 shots he had in his 38 special revolver, missed all of them. The guy got one shot off, and then the guy was on top of him, and his gun jammed, because if you on a semi-auto, if you push forward, you can jam the gun. And then it was wrestling, and the guy says, he's a trained jiu-jitsu guy, he's done martial arts, so they were wrestling on the floor, and he was like elbowing this guy in the face and fighting, and he was fighting for his life, and so was the other guy under him. And he said, man, they fought for 3-4 minutes until other people came in and like stopped this guy. They pulled the guy off him, and eventually they realized this guy's been shot. They called the ambulance. The guy was still, by the time the ambulance came and they put him on the gurney, the guy was like spitting up blood and stuff. And I think he didn't even know whether the guy died or not, because South Africa, the cops came, said, I go, what happened here? Okay, we got witnesses. Okay, the guy shot first. He missed you. You shot him. You're okay, cool. Bye. That was it. But you know, so if you think one shot from a 45 will drop you dead, whether this guy was on drugs, whether he was just pissed off, I don't know. But I've seen it on animals. I know for a fact the mental attitude of whoever's attacking you makes a hell of a difference. And you know, the only thing that stops that mental attitude is either a hit that's big enough to make him realize he's actually been shot and the biggest caliber you got will work, or you know, if you hit him right there, goes straight through, hits the back of his like main motor function, the back of the bottom of your brain, that stops it. Or you know, if his spine is broken, that stops him moving. But anything short of that, anything can happen. And 9mm are a little bit like crossbows or bow and arrows. When you shoot shit with a 9mm, I know that there's no difference in caliber between a 357 Magnum and a 9mm, but the 357 Magnum is traveling a lot faster, and it makes a difference. It just does. 9mm, you know, people get shot by that all the time. I don't know. I don't trust it. The only reason I carry a 357 Magnum instead of a 44 Magnum is because the 44 Magnum kicks more to the point that it makes my shooting become uncomfortable and become not as steady as it should be. And you know, maybe as I'm getting older, I'm thinking, yeah, fuck it, you know, be a little bit older, be a little bit, maybe you're a bit slower, maybe your eyesight's not as great, but if I can put a small round exactly where I want and quickly, yeah, that'll do the job. Ballistic Monk says, my Springfield XD40 I bought in 2002 has had over 100,000 rounds through it. It's my everything gun. Caltex are made here in Florida, Cocoa Beach. A Springfield apparently makes really good gun. And yeah, you know, 100,000 rounds, that's a lot of fucking rounds. You know, I'm sorry, dude, but my autism is getting the best of me. Let's see, 100,000 rounds. Divided that by, okay, and divide that by, so you spent a grand total of an uninterrupted, at one shot per second, 28 hours firing that gun. That's quite impressive. I don't know, that's over, okay, it's over 20 years. So that's more than an hour a year, which is quite a lot, really, because if you think about it, actual pulling the trigger, going bang. Yeah, so in American, what? Greenie Houdini, as I think she's well into her cups again now. I think that vodka's starting to hit because I can't decipher what she's writing. Have an UNC in Cocoa Beach. Have an uncle in Cocoa Beach? I don't know. I don't know what that means. Fella, thank you again for your $5. It's definitely going to guns only. Ballistic Monk, I had a girlfriend from Bergamo who I trained to shoot an old CZ75. The CZs are very good guns. And she went home and purchased a Beretta APX. Berettas are good guns. I'm not sure that I know what the APX looks like off the top of my head. When I first got here, I went to shoot, I wanted to get a Beretta PX4 Storm, and I went to shoot a full-size one. But I wasn't impressed with it. I wasn't impressed with how I shot with it. You know, it's probably me, not the gun, but you know how some guns, you think, oh yeah, that looks cool, it's going to be great, and then you pick it up and you try and shoot, and you're like, what the fuck? Kurgan, do you enjoy sake? Yes, I do. I enjoy sake a lot. Very good sake. Sake and tequila are my favorite hardcore drinks. And I don't know which one is better, to be honest. I quite enjoy them both. But yeah, I wasn't impressed with my ability with the Beretta PX4 Storm. It was kind of weird. I felt, yeah. For the newcomers, remember, we have a collection for this unfortunate man in Italy that hasn't owned a 1911. No, seriously, guys, I've made a promise to myself and to you. Any super chats I get are going just for the gun, nothing else. I'm not going to spend it on anything else. You know, I mean, the kids can eat once every 3 days. It's fine. No, I'm actually not kidding. No, I'm kidding about not feeding the kids, right? They eat every day, several times a day. I'm just saying, super chats are just for the guns. That's a promise to the channel. Where was I? Sam Webb says, hey, the Colt 1908 pistol is chambered for 380 ACP. Looks almost identical to the 1903. Yes, I'm aware, but they're even harder to find here. And so there's a thing in Italy which for handguns you can have a maximum of 200 rounds. And I don't want to have less than sort of 50 of any one caliber. So, you know, I've got the 22, which has also got a small rifle. So the 22 is considered a handgun round. So even though you're using it also for a rifle and the handgun, it still forms part of those 200. And then I got you know, the 357, the 765, the PPK. So I've already got like 3 calibers for handguns, and I'm kind of saving the other one for the 45. That's why the 1903 would work very well, because it's a 765. I already got a 765, so it's just another 765. And I wouldn't have to like get a different caliber sort of thing. Wooly Ram says, assuming apocalypse scenario and all you can scavenge is a 9mm Glock CZ and NATO rounds rifles, hypothetically, where do I aim for maximal effect in Minecraft? Look, a 9mm is it's a decent weapon, but where do you aim for maximum effect? You know, again, if you're a marksman and you're like, you know, John Wick, then front, you aim here, back, you aim there, same spot, because that's your central nervous system. What in Italian is called il cervelletto, the little brain, if you translate literally. It's at the base of your skull, and it controls all your motor functions. So, you know, if you've got a scenario where like the guy's got a gun to the girl's head and whatever, and he's like, oh, I'm going to shoot her, you want to hit him with a rifle round right there. And if you're kind of unlucky and, you know, just the jerking off of his head, he might still pull that trigger. But if you hit somebody right there, it goes through straight to there. Not with a 22, right? Because if you shoot somebody here with a 22, it might not even get past his jaw and his teeth and whatever. But if you shoot somebody with a 300 Win Mag there, it's going to go straight out take out that whole motor function thing. Even a shot right here is not ideal. If you want to hit someone there, if you want to end their motor functions right there. But you know, it's a tiny spot to hit. And you know, the thing with a 9mm is they usually have high capacity. So the tendency on a 9mm is to spray and pray, as they say. You know, is just keep shooting until the guy's down, and keep shooting when he's down until he's not moving anymore. You know, I mean, generally speaking, I think 2, 3, 5, 7 shots to the general chest area, even if you don't hit the heart, you know, even if you just hit lungs and sternum, I mean, the chances are you can break the spine if it's head on. You'll feel it. It's not just going to go like poof. Oh, it's just I got tapped. Unless the guy's on something, you know, if he's on PCP or whatever, I don't know. Then again, there. But yeah, you know, the thing is that, like I said, that guy got hit by a 45, punctured his lung, was a kill shot. Eventually, will kill him. But he can fight for minutes, you know, and all you need to empty a magazine is seconds. I mean, you can empty a 20-round magazine in like a few seconds, you know, 3, 4 seconds, if you just bam, 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 bam. So unless you hit the guy right there, you're gonna have problems anyways. The psychological effect of being shot also is a big factor. So center masses, you know, they're basically, you know, if you look at a target things, which in Italy you can't have, that look like humans, but basically the basic target is shaped sort of like this. And, you know, because these are the deadly areas, you got your heart here, heart, lungs, aorta, the spine is all the center line. You know, here you got the brain, little thing, the throat also, you know, you don't want to get shot in the throat either, it's spoil your whole day. So yeah, that's where it's at. But all you guys, fella, $5. He's the man. It's now 105. I'm gonna. Don't think I have a 5 on me, but I'll add it to the stack, and that's where it's gonna stay until either break. Yeah, no, I don't have 5s, I got 20s. I got $1 for some reason in my wallet, but anyway. So, where are we? Oh, hello, Aged in the Sun. And Macellerat is the guy that asked, do you enjoy sake? Yes, I do. I enjoy sake quite a bit. Good sake, especially. Like tequila, I'm a bit of a snob when it comes to tequila and sake. I really like the good stuff. There's quite a few of you in here, so feel free to... It's Halloween. Throw in whatever you want. You can talk about whatever you want. You can ask whatever silly questions or clever questions. We're on the topic of guns, the 1903 for $300. Come on, guys. We're only $200 away from the 1903, or 900 and something bucks away from a Colt 1911. So give generously. You know, there's children in Africa that don't have 1911s. I'm an African. I've got an African passport. I never owned a 1911. I barely have shoes. But the 1911 is the important thing. So anyway, so yeah, throw up some more topics. I'm actually feeling strong. I tell you what I'm gonna do. I don't have any sake, sadly, but I'm gonna go downstairs and grab myself a glass of verdicchio. In the meantime, those of you that feel so inclined, throw in some commentary about Colts, guns in general, any gun, guns you like, guns you want to shoot, guns you own, questions about guns, questions about working with guns, whatever you want. Ask any questions about any gun related stuff, any World War III related stuff, or something completely different. I don't mind. I'm gonna go grab a glass of wine and I'll be right back. And I'm back. Here's my verdicchio in my Corona bottle glass. And I've also picked up some Asiago cheese, because if you're gonna drink wine, you might as well eat cheese. And let me just make a bit of space here. Okay, where are we? Ballistic Monk says, I have a lot of gun experience. Ask me anything. Okay. When you say you have a lot of gun experience, do you mean, I'm assuming firing at targets, hunting, the cheese, the Asiago. Tell me a little bit more about your experience, because then I can ask you some more interesting questions. Aged in the Sun says, so are we going to have a turkey shoot? Well, that depends on turkey. um, you know, America is geographically relatively safe from, not from nuclear war, because the Russians can nuke the crap out of you if they want to, but from whatever's happening in the Middle East and in Europe eventually, other than the people that the Americans will send there to fight the wars for other people. The biggest problem for Americans, I think, are other Americans. And the new Americans that seem to come across your borders in large numbers. More scavenging questions. What gear would you want to grab from fallen policemen, soldiers, aside from weapons, rations, and medicine? The bulletproof vests. And their uniforms. Why the fuck not? They might be useful for blending in. Fella says, every time you do a gun stream, I buy another gun. The one thing I hate about you Americans that I envy is the number of the availability of guns, the different types of guns that you have. You have all the guns. You can literally get just about any gun in the States, and that's not always the case in Europe, although, you know, we've got a fairly big choice. But you guys definitely take the cake on that one. And the ease with which you can get the guns. And another thing is, you know, if you've got decent property, you can just shoot your guns on your own property without any problem. And that's not so much the case here. So I do envy that about America. And that's pretty much all I envy about America, but yeah. Any suggestions? In order for you to give you a decent suggestion, I would need to know a few things about you, if you're okay telling the people, which is your age, your height / weight, and what primarily would you want that weapon for? Is it hunting? Is it like self-defense? Is it carry gun? You know. Ballistic Monk says, grab their electronics. Yeah, of course, their comms as well. Yeah. I didn't, I thought that was obvious, but yeah. They're, you know, special night sights, all that stuff. Drone controllers, drone guns. There are weapons that will zap drones. If you can get a hold of one of them, drones are bad news. The scariest thing of modern warfare in my mind is drones. I'd be more scared of drones than I would be of tanks or infantry, any of that shit. Weight limits are a thing after all. Yeah. Ballistic Monk says, competition shooter, bodyguard instructor, reloader. Okay. Okay, so you got all right, I'm going to ask you the question that's been bugging me all day, Ballistic Monk. Let's say you could only have one carry handgun for life. That's it. Only that one. Can never change it. Doesn't matter if you get teleported to T-Rex times, the apocalypse breaks out, the zombie fucking thing happens, civil war, or nothing. It just carries on as is. You can only have the one carry gun. What would you pick and why? Macellerate says, Ballistic Monk, are you near Detroit? I'd pay for lessons. Good. I like this little community. Gaijin TV says, Halloween topic. How do you get the vampires out of the Vatican? Onegaishimasu, as a favor. Wow. The usual way you get vampires out of any place. crusaders with holy water, strong faith, stakes, sunlight, ultraviolet guns, I believe. Did you guys see 30 Days of Night? It was a film with, I think, Ashton Kutcher about vampires in Alaska. It's like a pretty hectic horror movie, but I really enjoyed that film. It was like, that's what it would be like. Kind of like that. Accelerata says he'll find an excuse to visit Florida so he can train with Ballistic Monk, who is near Orlando. Door Knocker. Have you heard of the Kuna 1911 in 357 Magnum? Yes, I have. I've been thinking about getting one for a while. I thought about that when I was a teenager. But I don't like it. Mostly I don't like the look of it. And to be fair, if I remember right from memory, because I'm talking about almost 40 years ago now when I read this stuff, and maybe it's changed now, you know, technology is different, but they, I seem to remember that they had a bit of an issue getting the feeding mechanism to work properly, because the 357 Magnum's got a pretty hefty kick, and I don't know if they weren't getting the springs right or something, but I believe it wasn't the most reliable gun. That may well be completely different now. I mean, talking about a long time ago. So, fella says I have everything I need, just curious if there's anything I missed. Dude, yes, you obviously missed stuff. I don't know. Have you got a suppressed 2.2? Have you got that that 9mm that comes with the integral suppressor? It's called, I think, a Maxim 9. I did a, if you go back to, I don't know, I think it's video number 280 or somewhere like that. I did a thing about my, 5 favorite handguns and 5 practical handguns, and it's in there. So that's a pretty cool gun. If I had to get a 9mm, it's not allowed here because integral suppressors are not allowed in Europe, in Italy. But I thought that was an interesting 9mm. It had a very high capacity and it had an integral suppressor and it looks like a space gun. So yeah, that one. Or if money's no object, first of all, send me a big super chat, and secondly, get a BRNO in 7.5 FK, which I think stands for fuck you, because that thing's a monster. I think it's kind of like 50 AE power, but like doesn't have that kick. Ballistic Monk says, sometimes I wonder if drones are going to make small arms obsolete. No, they won't, because I don't know if you guys know, but not too long ago, the United States lost an F-35. And apparently, what took that F-35 down was some hillbilly with a 50 caliber. So, the thing is, drones are a logistics thing. As long as the other military has got enough people and enough drones, they're going to keep using that shit. But there's always going to be, ultimately, you need boots on the ground. If the enemy can't tell whether you're a civilian, a fighter, a guerrilla, or whether you're buried underground, drones can't really get you if you're underground. So, funnily enough, in this whole Gaza thing, I'm sure they have drones, but they're not really using that. They're sort of carpet bombing the place because there's like miles and miles of tunnels in Gaza. Look, you also have to keep in mind that there is a lot of propaganda in war, a lot of psyops. So it's to the advantage of the people using the drones to make you believe that drones are the ultimate weapon that you can't defeat at all, because it demoralizes you. But the reality is, just look at any industry, look at anything. Humans fuck things up. Human will fuck up 2+2. They will fuck up getting wet in water. Okay? And you think in war that doesn't happen? In war that happens even a lot more. Of course, Ballistic Man says, I have already chosen one carry gun for life. My Springfield XD40, but I also have a 9mm conversion barrel for it. A full-size gun for carry does make for some difficulty, but not impossible. May I ask how tall you are? What kind of size you are? Because I find full-size guns to be sort of bare minimum for my hands. So I don't know. My Springfield also has an identical XD9 in the safe as backup, and both handguns have a lifetime warranty. I broke the XD40 on 3 occasions. Whoa. Mighty Bear says, I love my XD40. It's subcompact, it's my carry, and is amazingly accurate for such a short barrel. Fella, space gun, check. Yeah. I'm gonna go, I need to just get a picture in my head. Let me just type that out. I want to see. I think I've got it in my head, but I just want to make sure. So, Springfield XD40. What did it say? Come on, go find it. Images. Oh, another thing. Yeah, I'm glad you like it. You know, it looks like a Glock clone. Not what I thought it was. And yeah, another thing, and this is personal taste, and I don't know how much it would affect me, but it does affect me a bit. I don't like those polymer fucking guns. I really don't. I don't like. Oh, still 2 of you dropping off. I don't know if you're still there. Oh, Greeny Houdini has gone. Paratrooper edition. Okay, 911. I wanted. Oh, it's like all your comments are all. Okay, your comments have all got jumbled up for some reason. Ballistic Man says, if it's in good conditions for that price, get it. That's like 1/5 of the new price. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's in good condition because, you know, you just get a couple of pictures. I don't know who of you are still here. If one of you is. Okay, all your comments have got like bunched now. It looks like they're not in order anymore. They're just by person. So I don't know. Add a new comment if you're still there. There's still 2 of you apparently. And yeah, sorry about that, but rural internet kicked me off or something. Maybe the 2 of you are just in the background. I don't know. I was quite enjoying the conversation we were having about guns anyways. I think I got to Ballistic Monk saying that if I get the Springfield Echelon, looks good though. I don't know what that looks like. So since I'm waiting to see if you guys are still kind of alive, I'm gonna look what that looks like. Springfield Echelon. Well, come on. All right. Yeah, okay. It looks a bit like the Walter PPK, the new version. Yeah, it's another polymer gun. I know you guys like these things. They just seem like generic plastic to me. Don't enjoy them. I don't know why Greeny Houdini seems to be the last one that's commented. Oh well. Well, 3 of you. Come on, if one of you is still alive, ping something in the chat just so I can see if it works. Oh. No, it's really weird. The stream died. Oh, there we go. Sam Webb. Yes, it died all of a sudden. But I'm still here. I've come back from the dead. Yeah, I know your comments are all completely screwed up. I don't know what's happened here. And although it says I'm live and that there's 3 of you here, I'm not sure that any of you are actually receiving anything. All comments. Yeah. Let me type in test. Yeah, see what happens. Ah, there's my own typing in the chat seems to appear. But yeah, I think, well, I think the stream died. And I forgot what I was saying because it was about 20 minutes ago, I think, before I managed to reboot everything and get it working again. So unless one of you says something in the next minute or so, I'm just going to call it a night. Ah, the weird thing is Greeny Houdini is back to her old picture as well. Yeah, something screwy is going on here. Well, anyway, I did enjoy the chat with you guys, and hopefully the next stream will be a bit more consistent. We have had storms and some weird stuff going on today, so I don't know, maybe they'll soon kill the internet to hide all the stuff they're doing with their various wars. Until next time then, for any of you that are still listening and or if this is tagged on to the, oh well, wait, ironic keyboard. You gave me my Halloween fright. This was on in the background and I thought you went offline. I did go on offline. For about 20 minutes I disappeared. But ironic keyboard is alive and now there's 5 of you. You're all coming back. You thought I was dead. It's midnight, past midnight. I am now back in the land of the living as the undead. Come on, get back in the chat here. Remind me what the hell I was talking about, which gun I was mentioning, I forget. And that was the ballistic monk guy. He seems quite interesting. Oh, I know the Europeans alive and multitasking. Good, good. Of course, if you're a man, that means you're fucking 5 things up at once. And if you're a woman, you're just creatively attempting 5 things at once. There's no such thing as multitasking successfully. It just doesn't exist. Unless, by multitasking, you mean drawing, aim, fire. Ironic keyboard. What gun would you recommend for someone who never grew up with guns and would be a first-time owner? I'm assuming you live in the USA. The first thing I would advise you to do is go to a gun range and shoot a bunch of different guns, play around with them. Start off with a small caliber like a 22, just to get something on paper. And you know, guns are a pretty individualistic thing. You need to, if you've never owned guns, you never grew up with guns, start off with something small like a 22. Just get comfortable with using the gun, going to the range, shoot like 200-300 rounds through a normal 22, and then work your way up. You know, from a 22, maybe work to a 7.65, or what they call 32 ACP, automatic Colt pistol, like the one I was talking about. You know, you're not going to find a Colt 1903 at a gun range, but you'll probably find some 32 ACP at a gun range. Just rent one out and fire that, then work your way up to a 38 special revolver maybe, then a 9mm semi-automatic. Play around with different guns. And then I've fired guns before, just never owned one. Fired an AR 9mm and a 22 when I was younger. Yeah, well, you know, things change with time, so play around with different guns. Pick up guns that feel good in your hand, try them out. Pick up guns that you like the look of and try them out. Spend some time at a gun range trying out different weapons. And when you say, you know, if you pick out a gun for a first-time gun owner, I'm assuming you mean a handgun, but that might not be the case. You might want to pick out a long gun. A generic long gun that's good for a little bit of everything is an AR. I don't like them personally. A lot of people have ARs in 5.56. I don't like the 5.56. As I've explained before, I like hard-hitting big calibers. So for me, a minimum in an assault rifle would be a 7.62. I've fired 5.56, but I think it's a bullet that's designed to wound rather than kill. And I'm not a soldier in a war that's trying to just wound as many people as possible for logistics reasons. I'm the kind of guy that, you know, I'm kind of hoping I don't have to shoot a bunch of people, but if I do, I want them to be dead. So I would use a 7.62. I would have a heavier assault rifle. I'm also you know, relatively bigger guy, so I can carry a 7.62 easier than maybe a smaller guy. But if you want a generic all-purpose sort of long gun, shotgun, or an AR-15. AR-15 has got a longer range. It's got pretty much the same sort of versatility of a shotgun in terms of it's got a better range, longer range, but you can use it on like small animals to up to pretty big animals at a bigger range. What it doesn't have is, you know, you won't be able to shoot birds really in flight, that sort of thing, which a shotgun you can do with. And a shotgun will take down anything that an AR-15 takes down, but at a much closer range. So if you're talking long guns, I would say get an AR-15, get a shotgun, and then if you enjoy shooting, play around with the AR-15, put a scope on it or something, and try and start doing slightly longer range shots. And then if you like that, get a proper rifle for long range stuff. If you're talking handguns, I would say the first things you gotta decide is, you know, basic stuff. Do you want a revolver or do you want a semi-auto? A lot of people think, oh, there's no place for revolvers in the modern world because they only hold 6 shots. It's not always true. You get Rugers that hold 7 or even 8 shots. 357 Magnum, 8 shots. But they are bulkier. They are heavier because they're all metal, which I prefer. I don't like the polymer stuff. But, you know, you might pick up a Glock and decide that it's the best thing since sliced bread and you shoot well with it. Happened to my own brother. You know, some people are born gay and that's just how it works. Thoughts on an AK-47? Which hound there are, as far as I know, very reliable. I don't like the look of them, but that's my personal aesthetic. They are apparently a pretty good, they are like an assault rifle, you know, they're like an AR-15 or whatever. And I think the AR-74, which is the newer version, is apparently pretty good too. Hmm. Um, I've never owned an AK-74 or 47, and probably wouldn't. I mean, if you gave me one for free, I'll take it, but I wouldn't go out and buy one. But that's just because I don't like the look of them. As far as I know, they're very reliable. I don't know how accurate they are. I don't know what their margin of error is for accuracy as a general rule. I expect that you get modern versions of ones that are pretty accurate. Like most things, they get better. But I don't know. I don't know I don't know that weapon platform. I haven't used it, so I can't say much about it other than my personal opinion on aesthetics, really. By all accounts, they perform quite well. There's a reason that they're spread all over the world. So probably decent. And look, remember that any gun is better than no gun. So, and ironic keyboard. Yeah, again, then the thing you gotta keep in mind is after you've fired enough different types of guns. Okay, no local recording, fine. I think the NSA is just getting pissed off with me. Again, get the biggest caliber that you can shoot comfortably. And for most normal sized people, that's probably a 9mm. Even a 40 S&W is starting to kick a bit too hard for some people. 45 ACP. If you're shooting from a Colt 1911, remember, don't forget to fund the Colt 1911 fund. They're all metal guns, so although it's quite a big round, it's relatively slow round, and the weight of the gun helps reduce the perceived recoil to a certain extent, also because the bore of the 1911 is relatively low, so the kick doesn't quite hit as hard. There is actually another, I think it's the M1900 or 1901, which is also a 7.65 or 32 ACP, which is quite interesting because it has the barrel is actually on the lower side. Usually you've got the barrel on the top and the spring thing at the bottom of it. But in the M1900, it's the other way around. The barrel's at the bottom and the spring jobby is at the top. I saw that gun in a movie called Flamen and Citroën, which is loosely based on true story of this guy that had red hair and killed a bunch of Nazi officers, assassinated a bunch of them using this pistol, which is a 7.65, 32 ACP. So, when people say, oh, 32 ACP is not good enough, look, I thought it was a tiny little sort of gun, but then I got my PPK and I played around with it. And that thing has got penetration. It's not, you don't want to get shot by one, And it was the favorite caliber of the OSS, the SOE, Special Operations Executives. They, I forgot what it's called. It was a special purpose made integrated silent pistol, with the silencer or the suppressor was integrated to the barrel of the gun. And it was, so you had to like manually cock it each time so that it wouldn't release, it was like a little bolt action sort of thing, so that they wouldn't release the casing out. So it was essentially, it was more than a one-shot pistol, but you had to do this manual loading between shots. So it wasn't a fast gun at all. It wasn't a semi-automatic or anything. And it was designed as an assassin's weapon, effective out to 25 meters, they were saying. But, very crude sights on it. And that was in 32 ACP. That was a 7.65. People get killed by 7.65s all the time. Cops in a lot of Europe and officers throughout the Second World War used 7.65s. They're certainly good enough to kill you if you get hit in the right spot. So it's not like as I said, shot placement is important, but if you're a guy that maybe a weak guy, or maybe a guy that's got small wrists or something, or a woman, 765 is fine. It'll you're a bit, and remember, one other thing, ironic keyboard, if you get the 9mm pistol I shot was very comfortable but small in my hands. Get a full-size gun. I don't know what 9mm pistol you shot, but get a full-size 9mm usually are okay for my guns. If you get any full-size Beretta, or Sig Sauer. Sig Sauer makes really good guns. I think the P320 or the P266 or 260, I forget. Pretty much any Sig Sauer is going to be decent, other than the 357 Sig. Don't get it's a bottleneck round, which I think has feeding problems or whatever. But there is actually a really cool Sig Sauer in 765. It's called the P210-5 or 6. Beautiful, nice, full-size 765 gun, ideal. It's something that I would love to have. They go for about $3,000. So, and they don't make them anymore. So the ones you can find now are about $3,000. So I would probably get one of those if I could get any 765 or 32 ACP. I'll probably want one of them. But it would, I think, a full-size 765, so almost target pistol that's got some features that make it like easy to carry, smooth, with like nothing to catch on, not really target sights, but target accuracy. I think that would be a cool gun. I think that's a little market that's not been explored. Are there any manufacturers to avoid outright? I'm a little bit out of the game in that, because things have changed a lot. For example, 30 years ago, I wouldn't have never bought a Taurus, or I would have never bought most of the Spanish things. But now Taurus has made some good guns, by all accounts, as far as I can tell. I think Caltech, I've never actually shot them or owned them, but I was looking at the reviews of quite a few people, including that honest outlaw guy, Chris, and I was going to get a Caltech shotgun, that double barrel shotgun that can hold up to 25 rounds, except in Italy they limit it to 12, so it's like, because I called the guy up and I said, listen, the shotgun, can you get in Italy? I believe you can. And he goes, yeah, you can. I said, so can you get the one that holds 25 rounds? And he just burst out laughing at me. He goes, nah, they make them so you can only hold 12 in this country, and that was a stretch to get. And we're like, okay, fuck it, then I'm not getting that. I'll get a Winchester, 7+1, that's 8 shots, pump action, isn't going to go wrong. But apparently that Caltech thing is a bit gimmicky, and although it's supposed to be a pump action, it like jams, it doesn't feed things properly. So apparently Caltech is not great. What was the other one? Was it Kimber or something else with a K? I can't remember. Apparently it's not particularly good. But yeah, I'm a little bit out of the loop in that. Like I said, Heckler and Koch, everybody swears by it, but I had a shitty one that didn't set the rounds off sometimes. Caltech are neat, novelty, but I wouldn't rely on one for my life unless desperate. Yes, that's pretty much what that honest outlaw guy said, Apollo Kyoku. They make innovative, like cool looking, fancy shit, but the quality of the build apparently is pretty crappy. So I don't know that there's. Oh wait, there was something. Astra was I think one of the Spanish ones that was shit 30 years ago, but I don't know, maybe now they're good, I can't really tell. There's also something to be said for your shooting style. I've got to tend to have a loose hand shooting style, for which one of the reasons I never owned a 1911 is because the grip safety. I love the way the gun felt in my hand, but I wouldn't keep the grip safety in because of the way I shoot. So I would tend to let go of it, and I would end up like, pulling on a trigger that's got a safety on. I think I can adapt to that, and I'm back then I was working with a gun, so I didn't want to train to learn a specific gun that I wasn't necessarily going to use for work. So I just didn't use 1911s. Now I'm not working with a gun. I could probably train myself to be comfortable with a 1911 grip safety, or you can always pin it. There's a way that you go to a gunsmith and they just basically deactivate the grip safety. But then, of course, it becomes a bit more dangerous, especially if you're carrying cocked and locked, which I probably wouldn't do. Actually, one thing, if that ballistic monk guy is around, one question I do have, and I probably can look it up on Google, but on the original 1911s, can you carry it one up, but with the hammer down? And is it safe with the hammer down, so that if you do knock it, or if it gets hammered on the hammer, would it set the gun off or not? I don't know that. I thought there was a little click that you can just, so like the hammer down would set the pin off, but there's like a mini click that just like keeps it just off the pin, so that makes it safe. And then if you did draw a 1911 that way, you would have to cock it, because the 1911 is single action only. So yeah, the look of the 1911 is iconic. It's beautiful. It is a beautiful looking gun. And like I said, I prefer the original one with the straight back strap and the non-beveled trigger guard. Or not trigger guard, but the trigger going to the trigger is beveled on the subsequent model, the 1924 model, which carried on through Second World War and so on. Push comes to shove, I'll take the beveled one. I mean, I wouldn't say no to it. But I would really love to have the original 1911 look, which is a bit more squared off. And actually, there was one that I could pick up, like I said, for about $1,000 and a bit. So if you guys are feeling generous, please do give me super chats. I have promised the whole stream, all of you guys, that the channel, not just the stream, that super chats will only be used towards gun purchases until I have a 1911. Although I may hamper myself, because if I get to $300, it's going to be hard to not get the 1903. There's not many of them around. There's only one available, which might disappear in the next day or two. Who knows? But by the way, and if I do get to a point where I'm buying a gun with the money that you guys sent through the super chats, which I try and match. So if you send me like $50, I'll try and match the $50. So it's only like, to get to a 1911, it would only be you guys giving me like $500. Which I'm sure is a lot. Everybody's starving and whatever, and I'm telling my wife that my YouTube money is for my shit. But yeah, probably a responsible man wouldn't buy another gun. I've got enough, but I just want one. I just want one. Can you blame me? I don't think it's a sin, right? So yeah, if any gun that I get to buy as a result of you guys helping me with the super chats, I will do a full review on it. I need to find out whether I can do a shooting review of it, because there are certain rules in Italy I'm not sure about, and I'm also not sure about the YouTube rules on that for Europe. But if not, maybe I'll just join up Rumble and I'll do the gun review on there, if that's allowed somehow. The shooting review. I'm pretty sure I could do a non-shooting review of the weapon, but I need to look it up. But if there's any way to do a review, I will do it. Otherwise, I'll put it on. Oh, thank you, sir. That's another $20 for my ironic super chat for the Halloween gun fund. Thank you, sir. So between you and the other gentlemen, I've now got 25, which, okay, after YouTube take their chunk, it's what, like 20 bucks, something like that. No, a bit less, whatever. Almost 20 bucks, which I'll match. So we're getting to the 100 and almost 50 mark. Halfway to the 1903. Fella, there you go. Gun addiction is almost as expensive as heroin addiction. I have got multiple addictions. You can see some keyboards behind me, like typewriters. That one there, that was, I think, almost 400 bucks. And that's late 1800s or very early 1900s. And I don't know why they stopped making this typewriter, because this typewriter, unlike the other two, the Olivetti and the Imperial, the British one, so that's British, that's Italian, and I think this is German. This typewriter, I'm gonna have to show you because it's almost as cool as guns. Apart from the wood case and the fact that this needs dusting. So, see this? Now, check this out. In here, carefully wrapped in paper, which I have to take out. This is the drum with all the little letters on there, see? So now, I put is the square bit that goes in there, surely. So that's where the drum goes, and then when you push the keys, it moves the whole drum onto the paper. So the paper would be over here, and you bang that. And so this is when you shift, because you got a figure or something, you know, if you got to put something a bit higher there. Anyway, the thing is that with this drum, which, you know, there's bits that have to be moved out of the way and whatever, but the thing is you can type as fast as you want and you're never going to jam the keys, because of course it's a drum, so you can type as fast as you like and you can't jam the keys. Now on the QWERTY keyboards of the Olivetti, of the Imperial, of the Royal ones that were built, you know, the famous American ones, the QWERTY keyboard, I'll show you those as well, for those of you that are perhaps millennial and don't know what kind of crazy thing I'm talking about here. That this crazy mechanical monster that you've never seen, called a typewriter, which is what people used to write books on. And I will, if I get a chance before I die, I will actually write a book on one of these typewriters. I have promised myself that I will try and do that before I drop dead. Anyway, this one here is a Remblick, and also this is a QWERTY keyboard which was copied because the other ones were more popular for whatever reason, because they worked worse. But there's a Dvorak keyboard type thing. The QWERTY keyboard is designed to make you as slow a typist as possible. The reason for that, the reason that the QWERTY keyboard is designed to make you as slow a typist as possible is because look what happens if you type really fast on one of these keyboards. See? The keys all get jammed up. So to make you type, if you were typing, you know, people are typing fast enough that they were like, and all of a sudden you've got all your keys jammed up there. So they put the letters in such a configuration that would be the most difficult and least friendly for you to use, so that you can be slow enough that you don't jam the keys. which is ridiculous because on the other one, which came out earlier, you can type as fast as you want. And you had the keys, they weren't QWERTY keyboards. And paradoxically, this guy had to make a QWERTY keyboard just to, like, you know, because the other people were. It's really retarded. It's a bit like, you know, whatever, the original Apple IIe compared to the first Windows computers. These sucked. Yeah, forgive me, but my kids have given me a bit of a cold. So yeah, I have many obsessions. Another one is these ones, which the lady that did the cleaning moved them, and this is with this box. This is another little obsession that I have. See, quill pens, but I can't afford all my obsessions. Another thing that I have is these ones, old cameras. Picked these up in Egypt from a guy that was the only honest Egyptian I've met, who didn't try and rip me off, gave me a price, stuck to that price, and that price was actually good. And I went back the next day because I couldn't believe I'd found an honest Egyptian. And I've got more stuff in here. Like I like all the old kind of things. What is this? I forget where it is. Here, no. There we go. This is an old record player. See, you used to put, and it works. You know, you used to put a record there, wind it up. And then see how it turns, and then this bit with the little needle, which is in another separate thing, would go there, and it would like make that music. Also picked this up in the same Egyptian guy, and this is an 8mm video camera, which, if I remember right, might be I can't remember if I'm talking nonsense now, but it's called an Admika, and I think it might have been Soviet. But anyway, and again, this would still work. It's an 8mm film that you put inside. Obviously, you can't shoot for very long, but it's and again, you have to like twist this thing so that it's got a spring inside, and then when you release this, when you start to film, so you put the film in, you charge the spring, and then when you start to film, you push this in, and it lets it makes the spring off. Anyway, you hold this button in, and it lets the spring go so that it turns. Oh, there we go, I think. There we go. There. So there's some old film in here. But there you go. The film goes from one spool to the other. Don't ask me which way around. And the mechanism that you wind is in here. Then when you and then when you film, you push the button that releases the spring, and that this film is all super exposed, so that there's nothing on here. Or if there was, it definitely got burnt out long ago because it came with it. So it's more of a prop than anything else. But what have I done now? There we go. So this would all be done in a dark room. You know, you'd get the film in a light-proof container, then you'd have to go in a dark room, or maybe with red light only, to load the camera up. And then when you did load the camera up, I'm just trying to remember where the release button is, but that's it. That's closed. Lock it. Yeah. And you've got like various exposures here that you can do to get different size of lights and whatever. Anyway, it's a very interesting little thing. I did want to one day, if I ever get time, get some 8mm film and see what comes out of it. And then there's just little odds and ends that I've got, like little tiny monocle here. A very favorite, some old stuff, like old books that. Anyway, and I really like old things. I always have since I was a kid. I'm not sure why. Even this very thing here is actually a writing desk. This opens out, and this is where you would write your letters back in the old days. I've got another one downstairs. My desk here is sort of fits in with that stuff. It's an old desk. So that's, I don't know, what is that, 3 or 4 addictions right there, which is old cameras, old typewriters, old furniture, old writing instruments, old books, and that's just for starters. Then you've got stationery in general, I'm pretty addicted to. Drawing things, like things for drawing and watercolor painting, although I stay away from that because I'm not good at it. I mean, I've done some watercolors which are actually pretty decent. The people that have seen them are like, "Oh, you're really good." I was like, "Not really," but yeah, if I had endless money, I'd probably buy a bunch of stuff for painting, for watercolors. Astronomy, I've got a thing for astronomy. I bought myself for my 50th a giant telescope, which I don't have the space to set up in this house actually until I do an extension. And then guns. I mean, gun addiction and weapons in general, knives, swords, axes, you name it. So yeah, generally cameras, like proper cameras as well, although again that's such an expensive habit. I try and stay away from it, but I also had been burglared many years ago when I was in South Africa. I haven't figured out who it was, but he ran away to Canada. So yeah, the middle one looks like an Enigma machine. Yeah, it kind of is really. I mean, it is an old typewriter, but when I was working in the UK and I was making decent money, I'd now and then reach out for these things. With a heroin addiction, there isn't much room for anything else. Yeah, well, slackers. They only have one addiction, losers. I've also got an addiction for old maps. No, seriously, and the worst thing about it is that I can walk into a shop of anything that even remotely interests me, blindfolded, and pick out the things that I like the best, and without a shadow of a doubt, they will be the most expensive things in the shop. So, if I go to a gun shop and I'm like, okay, it's a gun shop of 1911s, or it's a gun shop where we only have one caliber of firearm, and I'll be like, yeah, look around, I'll be like, yeah, I like that one. It'll end up being the most expensive thing in the room. What can you say? I just have good taste. So yeah, I do definitely have a gun addiction, but these are addictions you can never fully satisfy. I mean, I'd have to try and balance it with how many guns can you actually shoot in your life for a decent amount of time, rather than not just pick it up, shoot it once, and be done with it. I mean, we can actually sort of practice enough with it that you become somewhat proficient with it. You're probably gonna be limited to like 20 or 30 guns, something like that. And but even then, I'd want to try out all the other weird shit just to know, just to see if it would like fit my hand, like that B&O 7.5 FK thing. I'd like to shoot one of those, like a 50 caliber. I shot a 50 caliber Desert Eagle, and it's awesome, extremely accurate. I actually made a hole. A shot hit the thing, and then like aim for the same spot, and I hit exactly the same hole. So it's a very accurate gun, and beautiful, and I like it, and it's gigantic and doesn't really have any practical purpose. So it's like and they're like 10 grand or something, or back then I don't know what they're like, a couple of grand I think now here. I'm thinking South African money back then, and what would I really do with a 50 caliber other than, again, if I was in the States, yeah, I could go and shoot it in my garden or whatever, but over here I can't even really do that. A lot of the gun ranges, you probably can't shoot a 50 caliber because it's too powerful for the normal sort of, far handgun ranges. So you kind of have to go to a specialized place. Which brings me back to my original thing. Like, what kind of one carry handgun do I really want? If I could pick only one. Yeah, swords are next for me. Yeah. But again, even with swords, I'm not into like all these replicas and stuff. My dad's got an actual original proper Japanese samurai sword, the ones that Japan does not, I don't know if you guys know, but Japan does not allow original Japanese swords to leave Japan. So the only original actual Japanese swords that are proper Japanese swords are ones that were either outside of Japan for whatever reason during feudal times, and they got taken out of Japan and kept out of Japan, or the ones from the Second World War, because Japanese officers still had Japanese swords, but they're very difficult to get, very expensive. My dad has one, an original Japanese one, with the original Japanese guy's like imprint, which I think, if I remember right, I think he researched who the forger of it was in Japan, because they have like, the Japanese with their swords are like, they have like a family tree, so it's quite an interesting thing. I don't know what he paid for it. It was some ridiculous amount of money, I think, but he's also got a bunch of guns and stuff. But yeah, when I talk about swords, I would either want a properly bespoke made rapier just for me, an épée, or a proper samurai sword like that one. So a proper knight's sword, there are guys that make them. I think they're not even, when I say they're affordable, they're not like original samurai sword costs. I don't know, maybe they're a couple of $1,000 or something, but I'm sure you can make a proper knight's sword. Not so much into the knight's sword. I'm more into the. I used to fence. I fenced, and I was actually really good at it. I was talented for it. I was coached by the ex-Olympic coach of the British team, and he told me, you keep fencing, in 4 years you're going to the Olympics. And then I moved to South Africa, and the only fencing they know there is how to keep cattle in, so one of those things I never got to do. I would have liked to do it. It would have been cool, and I know I was good at it. But weirdly enough, I think I'd be a better sword fighter for actual duels than competition stuff. And that's why I like the rapier. I'd want the rapier, because that was my favorite weapon that I was best with. Yeah. I did the same thing with old Gillette safety razors. You eventually collect enough that more aren't useful or interesting anymore. I know a guy that collects pipes, and he doesn't even smoke. Sounds like the weirdest weirdest like hobby, I guess. But yeah, you know, when I say rapier, I like, you know, the Wilkinson swords. The logo of Wilkinson swords is like two crossed rapiers, like one of them. I like one of those. That'd be cool to have. Now, what the hell is wrong with this thing? Maybe a cheese finger got on there. But fella, if you're in the States, check out Hal Siegel at Theron Arms. Okay, yeah, there's guys in the States that build proper swords, and I think they do it with like the correct sort of metalworking techniques and whatever. I don't know enough about it. I've never looked into it enough to like check. But okay, something is really bugging me here. Maybe one of those stink bugs crapped on it. Ah, there we go. Something. Yeah, stink bug turd. They're everywhere. But yes, to get back to the one carry gun. It's funny, it's weird, you know, but if I think about, okay, I can only carry one gun for the rest of my life, but then I think, okay, but what if I had to live back in South Africa? Then it like my brain goes, no, I wouldn't carry the same carry gun that I'd feel comfortable with here. I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable in South Africa, which is kind of weird, right? And funnily enough, you know, I know America has got a lot more gun violence than Europe, generally speaking, and a lot of it is gangbanger stuff. But you know, I still think South Africa is a lot more deadly than the United States when it comes to guns. And yes, I know that in the United States you'd probably get a cloud of lead coming at you from gangbangers. So, you know, having a high magazine capacity would be important. But let's just say, let's just for argument's sake say that in Europe I'd feel okay carrying a 1911, I'd probably feel okay-ish carrying that in the United States, but I'd probably feel undergunned in South Africa, paradoxically, when in South Africa I carried a Ruger, a 6-shot Ruger, with, you know, with 2 spare speed loaders, but still. But the thing about South Africa is that, like, the one thing I don't want to happen there is the gun to jam or catch on something, or me not being able to fire it because of some, you know, technical issue. Because the thing in South Africa is people there are shoot to kill. They don't hesitate. And while I think in the States, yeah, some gangbanger will try and kill you, but, you know, they're generally not exactly necessarily well-trained shooters. While in South Africa, people that carry guns they generally know what they're doing with them. And look, I'm sure in the States there's plenty of guys that know what they're doing with them, but those are not the guys you necessarily need to worry about. You know, the guy who trains regularly with a gun is usually not the gangbanger. And I'm sure there are gangbangers that train regularly and they're very dangerous, but I think they are the minority. While in South Africa, gangbanger, not gangbanger, normal citizen, the only guys that pretty much shoot like shit are cops. I mean, to give you an idea, there's a bank robbery happened in Johannesburg at one point. I think I was just about to move from Cape Town. I was about to move to Johannesburg, and it was all over the news that the reason it was all over the news, not because it was a bank robbery, because they happen daily, but well, not bank robberies so much. They don't happen daily for this very reason I'm going to tell you now. But what they used to happen is a lot of cash in transit, hijackings, and so on. Banks, not so much, because this bank got robbed, but I think it was 4 or 5 guys, and 3 of them got dropped by a random citizen that saw them running off, shooting, and just threw his gun and dropped 3 of them. And it turns out that the bank robbers were all cops. They were all you know, off-duty cops. And the guy that dropped them was a normal citizen. I think he killed, I can't remember if he killed 3 and wounded 1 or killed 2 and wounded 1. But anyway, they caught them, and the one guy that got away, they eventually caught him because the other guys that were still alive and wounded and shot up talked. Like most of them were dead though. But to go and rob a bank in South Africa, you'd have to be crazy. I remember plenty of times being in the bank and thinking, fuck, this would be the worst place to try and rob. If you're a bank robber, from Europe or something, and you're like, I got 2 guns. I got my buddy and I got another gun. I've got 2 guns. We've got a gun each. We're just going to go rob this bank. We pull out our gun and say, hey, it's a bank robbery. There's like, on average, 6, 7 people in there that all just be like, fuck that, and they'll draw and fire, because your average South African does not have the imagination to really consider consequences so much. He's more upset about the fact that you're trying to rob him, and he's going to fucking shoot you. And he doesn't really consider the fact that you might shoot him first. He's going to be like, no, cock. He's going to draw his gun and fire. And you know what? 8 times out of 10, that's the right thing to do anyway. And the thing is that when he draws and fires, he's going to be pissed off, not scared. Mostly pissed off rather than scared. And he's going to be shooting properly because he practices, because he likes guns, because he likes shooting. And he's like, fuck you, you're not going to rob me, man. And he's going to fucking shoot your ass. So it would be fucking terrible to be a bank robber in South Africa. And I mean, one guy that we know, here's a funny South African story for you. So one guy that we know was training Sistema with Vadim Dobrin, who is, Vadim Dobrin's level of martial arts is like, look, my level of martial arts, even now that I haven't trained for a few years and I'm not really fit and I'm kind of injured, but even now, my level of martial arts is good enough that even at 54, I'm not scared of your average 34-year-old, pretty intensively training karate guy or jiu-jitsu guy or whatever. I'm not worried about them. That doesn't mean I'll necessarily win all the fights, but it would be like, if I have to tangle with one of these guys, I'd be like, okay, fuck you, you're going down hard, or I'm going down hard, but even if I'm going down hard, you're not going away scot-free. You're going to be fucking damaged. And at my peak, it's pretty hard to touch for most martial artists. I remember I taught martial arts as well. But Vadim Dobrin, Vladimir Vasiliev, Sergei Ozeryev, all these guys are like a different level. They're another step up. And so Vadim was trained this South African guy who got mugged by 5 guys with knives and pangas, 5 black guys with knives and pangas. And he fucking laid them all out. He got like a little cut on his head from one of the knife attacks, but he just like flattened 5 guys, fucking wrecked them. And this is a normal sort of guy who just like trains properly and likes training. And you know what was his comment when he went back to the class, and he told the guys, yeah, shit, I got that. And he was kind of a bit ashamed, says, yeah, I got mugged, but I wasn't so cool. I got cut here. And so like Vadim's asking him, like, so what happened? He was like, yeah, there was 5 guys, and I kind of saw they were looking a bit dodgy, but I didn't want to be rude. And they came up and they were like, oh yeah, man, we'll give us your money. And like they pulled out knives and they're like, no, fuck you. And then they came at me, so I just like took this one guy and I was punching, and then I kicked the other guy and I took the knife off. But you see, I ducked a bit and I got cut here by like the panga, a little bit. And man, I was so tense. I wasn't relaxed. I could feel while I'm moving. I'm like, no, man, Kus, just relax, man. You're too tense. You're not punching properly. This is what was going on in his fucking head when there's 5 guys with knives and pangas trying to kill him. That's what's happening in his head. He's like, oh, cock, man, I'm not relaxed enough. It's like, that's your average for that. The level of imagination is not enough for them to get scared. So that makes them good fighters generally, because they're like, oh man, I'm not relaxed enough to give the proper like punch. I was a bit ashamed. Like, what the fuck, dude? You just survived 5 guys trying to kill you. It's like. But so yeah, but those are the kind of guys that you don't want to go up in a firefight against guys like that, because you have to absolutely drop them dead quicker than they can draw and fire, because otherwise they'll drop you dead. It's not like they're not just going to close their eyes and hope and the average South African with a gun is a lot deadlier than your average gangbanger with a gun. So I don't know. That's why I've been hesitant all this time, because I sort of think, yeah, you know, I could do with that, and then I'm thinking, but would I do with that if I was living in, like, you know, near Kailicha in Cape Town? It's like, ugh. So if I had to have just one gun, one carry gun, one concealed weapon carry gun. Oh, what happened there? One of my little, oh, it looks like, one of my little pins fell out of the map. One carry gun. Come on, guys, do it with me. One carry gun for any situation, concealed carry gun for any situation on the planet. I don't know. It's really hard. I kind of want to say 357 Magnum because I know that gun, but I've gone a little bit off it for some reason. I don't know if it's because more recently I haven't shot that well with it, or, you know, I still had to set the sights up. I've kind of set the sights up, but not fully, because I didn't have the right screwdriver, and then it got too tight and I didn't want to, like, force it. But, you know, the 357 Magnum is definitely a good gun, but the, you know, the carryability of it, the concealment of it is a little bit more difficult. Maybe I'm just getting lazy as I get older. I don't know. One concealed carry handgun for life in any country on the planet. What would I take? Would I, you know, if I try and think caliber, I'm thinking, well, the calibers that I would want to go for are, you know, 357 Magnum, maybe 40 S&W, but actually not really, because I had a 40 S&W and he sort of kicks a bit too much, and it's the ballistics are not that much better than 9mm, so 45 ACP, yeah, it's a much bigger caliber, but it's a bit slow, doesn't penetrate enough maybe. You know, then there's things like 45 Long Colt or 45 ACP, or the plus P ones, or the hot loads of 45 ACP, but then that's heavy on the gun, the kick is harder. You know, there's the newfangled stuff like that BRNO thing, which I've never even touched one, but it is pretty much a big cannon. It's not like an easy concealable carry gun. So I don't know. Yeah. Apollo Kyoko says 40 S&W too sharp recoil. Yeah, I found that. And I'm not recoil shy. You know, same with 10mm. I've never shot a 10mm, but I would assume that's the situation there as well. I just don't like 9mm. So there's a bunch of things that I have to balance. So aesthetics is one. It's not the most important, but aesthetics is one. Here it's 9mm all day. But again, fella, you might be a normal sized guy, whatever, 150, 160 pounds, 5'10", 5'11", something like that, 5'9". Is that the kind of shape you are? I've got big hands. I don't like 9mm because I don't trust them. I don't trust them to drop people the way I want them dropped. I trust the 357 Magnum, I trust the 44 Magnum, I trust the 41 Magnum, although I've never really fired a 41 Magnum. I fired 44 and 357. I suppose a 9mm is standard, and I could live with it if I really kind of, but then I'd have to kind of like the gun, you know? If I don't like the caliber, then I'd have to at least like the gun or something. If they made a really reliable 357 Magnum that was carry configuration, yeah, just for ammo availability, okay. But hear me out. Let's say the zombie apocalypse happens, right? And let's say I've got some, whatever, the BRNO with like the FK 7.5 ammo, but I've only got like one box of ammo. I've only got like 50 rounds with it. Who gives a shit? With 50 rounds of that gun, I can take out as many people that have 9mm as I want, and I can collect all their 9mm and all their ammo. So you know, is it a problem? It's a problem if you make it a problem. If you're the kind of guy with a proactive attitude, you can find the 9mm and you can find the things that shoot the 9mm. You know, exactly. Yes, the ammo is rare. Yeah, but you know, if the zombie apocalypse, I mean, when I was in England, when I was living in London, I didn't have a gun. You know, it's like hard to get. I didn't want to go through the trouble of getting a shotgun because what's the point? Or, you know, didn't bother. But I never worried about like, oh, if the apocalypse happens, I know exactly where to go and get a gun. I used to walk past two armed cops every morning for about 3 years going to work because they were near the American embassy and we were building a hotel near there. And they were the most lackadaisical, useless fucking guys that I've ever come across. Of all the British cops that I've ever walked right up to, right next to, the only one that had situational awareness was actually a woman. And she was on her own. She didn't have a partner. She was the only time that I saw her like 2 or 3 times. For whatever reason, she was posted outside the American embassy for a couple of days. She was the only one that had her back to the container that they like hung out near with. She was aware. She had her weapon, you know, not like cocked and locked and finger on the trigger or anything, but she was ready. She was like, and she was watching. She wasn't letting anybody fucking near her within, you know, 3, 4, 5 meters. And she was like positioned to just like, you know, she could go rock and roll straight away. The men are fucking useless, honest to God. And I mean, okay, I've done martial arts, I know what I'm doing, but I could pick up a pair of MP5s and handguns and all the ammo and their vests from, and they used, in the UK, they only go around in pairs. And before they've radioed, before anybody's called the alarm, before, I'll have their shit on me. I will have their vest on me and I will have their weapons on me. Loaded, cocked and locked, ready to rock and roll. And even their hats, so I look like a cop for a few minutes. If the shit really hit the fan and became zombie apocalypse, I knew exactly where to go and pick up guns. Armed cops in the UK. There's always a couple of them near various embassies. You just go there and pick them up. It's like, gives a shit. So it's not that big a deal if you know what you're doing. So yes, you know, the whole thing about, oh, you know, zombie apocalypse. Sure, if it's an actual zombie apocalypse, but then there'll be a lot of dead bodies. There'll be a lot of like gun shops that are just, you know, raided, and you can be one of the raiders. I don't really worry too much about running out of ammo. You know, and again, if you know how to shoot, if you know what it means to shoot to kill things, if you got 200 rounds, that's a lot. Do you know how many 200 dead bodies? They're a big fucking pile of people, man. You know? And people say, oh, you know, as a sniper, I'd want to carry the 5.56 because I can carry more ammo as a sniper. Oh, the 5.56 doesn't go out to that range. So you got to carry a 308. A 308 and a 300 Win Mag, not a lot of difference. And say, you know, oh, well, I'll carry. You can't carry 400 rounds of 300 Win Mag because it'll, you know, it weighs too much and you won't be able to carry anything else. I'm like, so if I'm actually a sniper doing a sniper thing, I'll carry 100 rounds because I'm fucking paranoid. As a sniper should be one shot, and then you move. You disappear. And if you're going to do that, and you might have to wait 2-3 days in one place before you fire that one shot. So 100 rounds, if you think about it realistically, that's almost a year's worth of ammo. That's if you're killing somebody every 3 days. You know, it's a lot of ammo. So I don't worry about that shit. A lot of the theory that people have in their head is bullshit. It's just theory. It's nonsense. You know, in Italy, it's a lot harder to go and collect rounds because in Venice, I think that, first of all, the Italians are actually a lot more fucking awake than the British people when it comes to guns and stuff. And in Venice, they always hung around in threes, not twos. 2 soldiers and 1 cop, or 2 cops and 1 soldier. And they would always have a distance with each other that if you're good and you're quick, you take out 2 of them. But if the third guy, and they were awake, you know, they're not fucking asleep, the third guy would drill you. Because even if you have a knife concealed and you're like, oh, you peel or you just attack from surprise, you'll get 1 quick. You get 2 quick. But the third one, you have to like walk up to him. And by now he's seen you and they're all loaded, you know, they're all loaded, carrying, ready to go. it would be a lot harder. Kazakhstan, a lot harder. In there, they just have three guys, always three guys, and they're always like facing 120 degrees from each other. So they're like back to back. They're always moving around, like, even when they're walking, sometimes they just stand, and they stand like all back to back. So they've got a 360-degree view, all armed, all awake, and usually, like ex-Soviet countries, they're all fucking trained. I didn't see a single soldier / cop in Kazakhstan that didn't look like that guy's been on the mat for like, years, not just minutes or days. So bullet technology has made the 9mm much more lethal in recent years. Perhaps. Okay. And the ammo's cheap, there is that. The ammo's cheap, which means you can train more, you can shoot more with it. So Vagrant Eater says, that's a spirit modern solution to today's challenges. You gotta be that way thinking, man. You gotta be flexible. You gotta adapt. Apollo Kyoku, for whatever reason, the grip angle fits me perfect. Can point and hit 8 inches at 60+ feet without thinking. You know what? That's a gun that's for you. And when you get a gun like that, you kind of want to stick with it. Do you think that's a training philosophy difference or a learn from mistakes thing? Oh, I'm not sure what you're asking me about the grip angle. I'm not sure what your question refers to, Apollo Kyoku. Please just clarify a little bit. What do you mean by, what are you referring to when you say training philosophy difference or learn from mistakes thing? We all have mistakes. We all make mistakes. We all have mistakes. Some mistakes that you choose to live with because you're too lazy to change, or you think, or your mistake works okay for you. Like, for example, I know, probably because I've got big hands, I tend to like put the triggers on most pistols tends to go here for me instead of there. And most shooters, not with rifles, never with rifles, but with handguns, I'll tend to go here rather than there, which is a mistake. But you know what? Hancock 45 does that, and that man can shoot the fucking ass of a fly at 50 meters. So he knows he does it, but he's trained that way. He's trained himself that way. He shot everything that way. He's got big hands. It works for him. So on the soldiers in 3. Oh, right. No, it's definitely a training philosophy difference and a strategic difference and a operational difference. The British are just shit at that sort of thing. They're crap. They're crap at that sort of man-to-man tactics. They're just fucking terrible at it. With police action, probably because they have a history of not really having armed police. So in the UK, when the UK cop, and keep in mind, cops are cops all over the world, right? In the States, if you have 120 IQ, you can't be a cop because you're too smart. So that applies pretty much throughout. Remember, the way I describe cops, essentially are cops or the thugs that were too lazy, inefficient, and stupid to be criminals without government approval. So they become cops. So, there are exceptions, obviously, to the rule, but most cops are just dumbass thugs. And what does that mean? Well, that means that in the UK, with them having a culture of not having handguns for citizens, for people, not having an armed police at all, when a British cop is now an MP guy, what do you call the SO15 special guys, special guns, armed police, SO15 I think they're called, yeah, as armed police, they now think they're Rambo. I've got a gun on me, and I've got another gun on carry. I'm Rambo. I'm invincible. I'm the man. Kind of like when an American guy has been to a couple of martial arts classes and he thinks that now he is like Jean-Claude Van Damme, like in the movies. And it's like, no, dude, This guy has never entered a gym, but he's had 72 bar fights. He's gonna kick the fucking shit out of you, even if you've been training for 3 years in a dojo. So there's that kind of bravado, stupidity, ignorance that they have. Italians, the Gruppo Speciale of the Carabinieri, the special armed military police of the Carabinieri are military police, and then they've got like a GIS. They're like special operations, like military police. Those guys are second to none. They're like fucking, they're machines. I would put them on a par with like the Russian special forces guys. And you don't hear about them. They don't talk about it. They don't brag about it, but they're fucking good. I wouldn't rate an SAS guy against a Gruppo Speciale guy, or a Russian special ops guy. I wouldn't rate them. I wouldn't rate it. I've had SAS. I trained SAS guys, and they're like nothing fucking special. The only thing that the SAS guys, if they give them a very hard mindset, they're like, oh, I'm gonna just go through this, and they'll break through a door with their face. That kind of attitude, which is similar to the Israeli sort of Krav Maga thing, which looks scary, is effective on civilians and people that aren't, combat trained. But against a guy that's trained and knows what he's doing, those guys are easy to deal with. Because their aggression becomes, they're like a train on a track, and you just bitch slap them, walk around them, and run circles around them. They don't know what the fuck's going. So, and operationally in Venice, the security system I saw in Venice to control a giant crowd of people that was going to Piazza San Marco when it was Day of the Redemptor, the 25th of May, essentially the day of Christ. It was the best I ever saw. They were essentially checking civilians. They had at least 3, if not 4, half barriers, so they restrict the passage. At the first barrier, they would stop only the obvious people, or like, madam, can I just look in your bag for like a second? And there was always 3 of them, 2 doing the checking, 3rd guy in civis that is just hanging about, and he's flagging people for the next lot, who would then pull aside the people that need to be looked at a bit more. And sometimes the first guys wouldn't stop the guy that their man on their team flagged for the second team. And then the second team, if there's need, there would be a 3rd team that was, the 3rd team was like 1 or 2 people. You could think of it as a 3rd or a 4th team as well, because there was the 3rd team, but then the 3rd team was composed of an extra, usually 2 guys in civis that looked like they belonged in the crowd. They weren't they weren't in uniform or anything, but they were part of the team. And the flow of people didn't really stop. It was very minimal slowing down, but man, they fucking were on. And I got flagged not to be searched. They checked the bag of my wife. It was I can't be 100% certain of this because I didn't have a long conversation with the guys. But they clocked me as being trained. They clocked me as being somebody potentially dangerous in terms of training, but not in terms of come here to cause shit. But because I'm trained, and because they thought that he might be that good that he's smart enough to know how to avoid us, he's clocked us. They realized I clocked them. They asked to search my wife's bag because they were like, if he's fucking smart, he's not going to carry anything on him. And when I went past, one of the last guys in civis nodded at me. And I couldn't help it. At that point, I smiled and I said, man, you guys are really good. You're really good. You're doing an excellent job. And he just nodded and said, thank you, sir. But, he didn't want to break his cover sort of thing. So, it's like I don't know how to explain it, but once you've trained a certain way, you will spot people that are dangerous, even if they theoretically don't look dangerous to other people. So there is that. There's a 90-second lag between audio and chat. Yeah, usually there is, because fucking rural internet. The fella says, I'm not a big guy and not familiar with different calibers and fairly confident. Then stick with that. You know, if you're not a big guy, 9mm is the go-to round for almost everybody, big guys, small guys, and you're confident with that, absolutely stick with that. I would never tell you to change it. I'm just saying, for me personally, I don't really trust the 9mm round. I know it's the go-to round. I know it's what everybody uses, but let me put it to you this way. If there was, like that SIG P210-5-6, a full-size 7.65 handgun compared to a full-size 9mm handgun, I wouldn't see really any difference in them in terms of stopping power, because while the 9mm is definitely a bigger round, you know, it tells you, right, 7.65mm versus 9mm. It is a bigger round. It's got more powder. It's faster. It's theoretically a better stopping round, you know, practically a better stopping round. Yes, but the 7.65 has got less recoil. I can shoot more accurately with it and faster with it. So, does it matter? And if they build 7.65 with the same sort of double stack sort of magazine, well, shit, I could probably have 25 rounds in a pistol that's full size for 7.65 compared to the 15, 20 that you can have in a 9mm. I wouldn't necessarily pick the 9mm. That's how lowly I think of the 9mm. I don't know if I have it here, but this, look, this is just the tip of it, because it's around from the range. So this is just the bullet part of the 7.65, right? It's quite a bit smaller. I mean, this is brass from a 357, and you can tell, you know, it jiggles around in there, right? You can see there's a space left over. So it's smaller, not a huge amount smaller, but it is smaller. It is shorter. You put this in the right place, you know, it'll stop you. And I don't think there's a huge amount of difference if you put that in the wrong place and you put a 9mm in the wrong place. I think the reaction's about the same. So I think that's my take on it, but that's just my take on it. So if I had to carry around, you know, I'm not saying that I feel as confident with a 32 ACP as I would with a 357 Magnum. I don't. I think there's a world of difference there. And there's again a world of difference with a 44 Magnum or a 50 caliber or a 454 Castle or whatever. But you know, 44 Magnum, the kick on that becomes too big for me to feel confident enough for a follow-up round quickly. 357 is just my limit where I can do a follow-up round quick enough. Not as quick as with a 9mm, but quick enough that I'm happy for the compromise. For me, the 357 Magnum is the perfect sort of round, in my personal opinion. However, having said that, the 45, theoretically, I'm not as familiar with the 45. I haven't shot it anywhere near as much. But the 45 ACP, theoretically, I could see that being a good round against, you know, unarmored civilians, I think. And the cool thing about the 45 is I think you can do a quick follow-up shot, because out of a 1911 it's fully metal, so the kick is a bit less. So you can do a quick follow-up round, but it's the kind of round that you would take your time shooting with it, or you would try and be accurate with it, almost to the same degree that you would with a 44 Magnum. And I don't think it's slower than a 357 Magnum in terms of, you know, 357 Magnum from a revolver, because I practice so much with it, I would be like, boom. I wouldn't like take long to get on target, and because I was trained with it a lot. But training is training, right? So if I train enough with a 45, I'd be like, boom, I'd be the same speed with the first shot. But my mentality with a 1911, I think, would be the same, of like, make sure the first round's going exactly where I wanted. And if you get hit properly by a 45, I would still do the double tap. Probably I'd do more of a double tap on a 45 than I probably would on a 357, just because I think the round is slower, and so I'm not as confident with it. But I don't know. I think a 45 or a 357 mag. For some reason, the 45 inspires confidence in me, although I'm nowhere near as used to it as a 357 Magnum. The 357 Magnum, I know that round well. I like it. And also the 45. My dad put two of them in a guy, and he kind of, I'm sure he didn't like walk it off, but he got away. Maybe it was bad placement. I wasn't there. I didn't see it. I don't know what exactly happened, but that makes me think, fuck, would he have stayed there if it was a 357 Magnum? I don't know. Apolik says, humility is a good measure of how dangerous someone can be. Yeah, the most dangerous people I've met are very, if you're not trained to spot them, if you don't know how to see these people, I think the soldier guy, who's a cool guy, he came training with us, and the way he used to talk about, like, my friend who was, when that same guy walked in, right? I was teaching a class. This guy walked in, and I looked at him. I stopped teaching, and I said, guys, just carry on. I went to talk to him, and I said, would you like to take over the class? And he goes like, why? We're like, well, because you know more than me. And he's like, why you say that? I don't know you. Do you know me? And I was like, no, I don't know you, but I just saw you walk in. But how do you know this? I said, I know. And he goes, no, but I say, okay, but you try to grab me, see what you can do then, let's see. And very, very gentle, we were both being super polite. And he asked me to basically put a lock on him, on his neck or something. Couldn't do it. And he wasn't blocking me and fighting back. He was just standing there, like, just moving around. And I couldn't put a proper lock on his neck. And I was like, okay, that's why I said, you want to please take the class. He goes, no, it's your class. I would never. I was like, please, I'm not offended. It's stupid for me to sit here and talk shit when you're in this class. And then, eventually I asked him to teach the class, and he started to teach the class. That same guy, the soldier guy that came to train with us, looked at him, looked at me, and said, and then he told me later, he said, when I walked into that class, I looked at you and I thought, yeah, fuck, this guy's tough. This guy knows what he's doing. I got to watch him. And I tried to push you a bit, and then I realized, fuck, he can fuck me up. And like, respect, cool. Then I looked at all this, and I'm like, who the fuck is this homeless guy? He looks like a fucking tramp. He looks like some peasant tramp that, like, why is he the janitor? Does he fucking sweep the floor? So just to show you, if you've reached a certain level of training, ability, if you've gone through certain things, you will be able to spot things that other people don't know to spot. And this guy was a soldier. He was in Afghanistan. He got shot at. He shot. He wasn't like just some weekend warrior kind of guy. But he couldn't see what I could see in this guy. And if you speak to Uldis, is the nicest man. He's like, oh yes, have a drink, and he's funny. He makes jokes. I've seen people trying to push him around, and he's just like, just takes it easy. But woe betide the poor bastard tries to stab his wife or something. It's just, I don't know if they'll find enough pieces of it. Well, actually they probably will, because he's such a nice guy. I said, no, I didn't need to kill him. I just took the knife away from him. I was like, what the fuck? Thinking a Ruger Red Hawk with a 5-inch barrel. Fella, I gotta say again, I envy you bastard. A Ruger Red Hawk is one of those guns, 357 Magnum, single action, Colt Army or whatever, that I would really like to have. Or maybe even the full 7.5-inch barrel cowboy gun, Yeah, dude, if you can get it, get it. If you can buy it, buy it. I mean, And if you can buy that many guns, do some charity for a poor Italian boy who's never owned a 1911. And I'm gonna start being like that guy I told you about in the Italian adverts. There are children starving in Africa. You know, there's people in Italy that have never held a 1911 in their hand, a proper one. Fella says, generally speaking, I prefer my rifles over any pistol. It depends on the rifle, but yeah, I like shooting my rifle. I love shooting my rifle. I do like shooting rifles. It's a different type of shooting though. I wouldn't even compare it. It's sort of like shooting the rifle is more of a technical. There's like a bit of engineering concepts there. Shooting a pistol is more. It's more like skiing. You gotta feel it. It's kind of like more of a physical sensation or something like that. That's how it is for me anyway. I like shooting shotguns when I'm hunting ducks and that, but I don't really enjoy hunting anymore, especially here. There's not enough animals to go around, maybe. But I do like shotguns. But again, if I'm talking just my personal thing that I would like to do, I'd like to have a little. It's all completely legal, so I'll never have it. But a little sawn off over and under without a stock, just like a pistol, like a 2-shot pistol. That used to be an over and under. That's just sawn off. I don't know why, like the Mad Max thing, but instead of side by side, like an over and under. That's what I'd want to shoot one of those. The Red Hawk is. Oh, sorry, that's the Black Hawk. So, sorry, yeah, you're right. The Red Hawk is the double. I think the Red Hawk is the one that. Is it the one that comes also in 7-shot stainless steel, if I remember right? Maybe I'll get both. Now you're just trying to make me green with envy, and I'm not an envious man. I've never been an envious man, but I admit I do resent your wide open spaces where you can shoot whatever the hell you want, as much as you want, without anybody bothering you. I wish that my country reverted back to that. And who knows, maybe with a little help from Russia. I believe so. Good. Dude, honestly, man, best wishes to you. If you can get both, why not get both? Get both. And if you can afford it and you like them, fuck it. Well, why not, man? If you got that addiction and you can satisfy it, I don't see anything wrong with it. When I told my wife that I was thinking about a 1911, she was like, because that's what's important, right? That's what we need right now. I was like, when's the last time I bought myself so much as a t-shirt? Look how many clothes you got in your cupboard. Oh, they're all old. Yeah. You get yourself some new nail polish. Yeah. Ah, you think I didn't notice that? You got a new perfume. Yeah. It's like, fella says, fuck it. Fella, I don't know if you're having good tequila while you're drinking. That would really make me upset if you're, not upset. No, I kid. I'm happy. I genuinely, I get happy for people that can do cool things and that have good lives. So if you can buy a Red Hawk and a Black Hawk and you're drinking good tequila or good sake or both, more power to you, man. Honestly, that's. I also have an ammo and optics edition. Well, you can never have too much ammo. That's not an addiction. That's just common sense. Optics, I'm very old style. On pistols, I'm thinking, what's the point? I don't want optics that get in the way. They'll just make it bulkier. Red dot stuff. I don't really, not used to it. Never used it. Actually sober almost 20 years. I think then you're just a very cool, unusual guy. If I'm reading between the lines, right? Everybody swears by red dot. That like honest outlaw guy, he's got like a red dot on fucking everything. I don't like them. I don't like the look. And again, I'm a maths guy, really. Statistics is how my brain sort of works. Ratios and sets and stuff like that. If I'm going to use a handgun for self-defense, the chances are I'm going to be shooting at somebody that's in my house. Or if I'm outside, it means that I would have to be carrying the gun, which is not likely. And again, this is assuming sort of normal day-to-day world stuff, right? Of course, if the fucking shit that it's the fan and it's the apocalypse, well, if it's the apocalypse, I'm strapping my 357 to my leg, open carry, because anybody that comes within 5 meters, friend or foe, is gonna be drawn on and like, what the fuck are you doing? Because you're getting a bit too close, then it doesn't matter, right? But in civilian circumstances, even if I was concealed carrying, and it happens outside of my home, so it's not a home invasion, the chances that I'm going to draw and fire on somebody, I'm not going to be, whatever. Let's say there's a Muslim attack with guys with AK-47, and they're 30 meters away. If they're 30 meters away, the first thing I'm going to be doing is looking for cover and trying to get cover for anybody near me that I give a shit about. Because at 30 meters away with their AK, yeah, if they're not trained and I'm moving and zigging and zagging and hiding behind the cylinder block of a car or something, they're not likely to get me right away. Unless, they've got their back turned to me and they're just firing away, and okay, then I'll take my shot at 30 meters away, I'll stop, aim, boom, and try and plug in. But handgun battles on average are less than 6 feet apart. They're less than 2 meters. So it's kind of a point and shoot situation. And what do I really need the optics for in that situation? My best shooting is done instinctively. My best shooting is done without any conscious aiming. So that's kind of, I can't see shit anymore. I'm more interested in magnified optoscopes. Oh, and rifles, yeah, okay. No, on rifles, I agree, because I shot a lot of open sights rifles in Africa, but again, I don't, if I had to use a rifle now, it would probably be because of an apocalypse scenario, and then it's long range and it's optics, and yeah. And when it comes to that, all the new fancy shit is all electronic, which means, and it's all active electronics, which means it gets picked up by, the night vision goggles that they have in the military now will pick up those scopes from fucking miles away. It's literally like it's like a little candle in the night for them. So I like the old Starlight scopes. They're completely passive. You can see through it dark at night. You can look through the scope, or decent Leupold Starlight scope, which I don't think they even make anymore now. And you can see pretty clear, so I'm retro in a lot of stuff. And also because that's what I'm familiar with. And the thing is, when the shit hits the fan, stick with what you're familiar with, and you're way better off than trying some fancy new shit that you're not familiar with. I wouldn't, again, look at the Americans, right? With all their fancy shit, all their electronics, all their stuff. They got their ass kicked by a bunch of goat herders in Afghanistan. Fuck that electronic bullshit. I dig good European glass. There you see a discerning man. Then I agree with you. And the Starlight passive scope is good. Mine still works, although it's almost 30 years old. Mil dot Leupold scope with Starlight on it. It works great. You can charge it up a little bit with a torch. You shine that in, and then you look through it, and you can see the green stuff. It's a little bit degraded because it is very old. I don't know if they still make those. If they do, and I get a shitload of money, I'll upgrade to a bit more magnification, because it's not a huge magnification, but I've reached out to a mile with it. So no, not a mile, a kilometer with it. And with a bit of training, I'm sure I'll hit 1,400, 1,500 meters, no problem. But yeah, if I would, I'll probably get slightly lower mounts and slightly bigger magnification. Still mil dots though. I like mil dots. Yeah. And well, I think it's mostly you and me, fella. Anybody else got any comments on guns? And it's a bit of a sad thing that this one is not recording for whatever reason. But usually I record the live ones, but this one is just going to be on YouTube, I guess. So yeah, if anybody else is talking about guns or anything else, let me know. Like I said, I've got a slight flu, so my throat is starting to get a bit sore from talking. But it was really great talking to you guys, and thank you again, fella, for the $20. Or was it you that gave? No, sorry, it's Ironic Keyboard that gave the $20, and fella gave me $5. So thank you guys for the gun fund, Halloween gun fund. We're now at 120 or so, almost halfway to that 1903 for $300. Yeah, I'll hang about another couple of minutes in case there's anybody else still listening that wants to make a comment. There's 7 of you. That was a big drop off after the stream died. And I'm looking at the Springfield Armory Echelon, and okay, it's definitely prettier than the DX40. But yeah, I don't know. These plastic guns all look the same to me. They all look like something that had a bit of sex with a Glock, and you know, just puts me off. Yeah, I don't know. I still haven't answered that question. If I only had one carry gun for life, what would it be? I'd have to play around with it, but it might well end up being a 1911, a proper full metal Colt 1911. Might end up being one of them. I don't know. You guys help me get one. I'll figure it out. Okay, looks like we have extinguished, either there's a delay, rural internet, or even fella has maybe decided to go to sleep. But I really enjoyed this chat, and I always love talking about guns, so maybe we'll do another stream just on guns or something. Glocks suck. I knew I'd figured you out, discerning gentlemen. You know, the reality is that Glocks are apparently reliable. My brother swears by one, and he didn't mean to. You know, it's just like one of those things, I guess. He sucked a dick once and then he liked it or something. I don't know. No, but you know what I mean. He didn't plan to enjoy shooting a Glock, but he said, man, the thing is, I shoot well with it. I'm accurate with it. It's comfortable to carry. So fuck it. And he carries and uses a Glock for work. I would train myself out of it myself, but you know, to each his own. Yeah, I suppose this Echelon is not bad looking. You know, another thing I realized I don't like. I know it's useful. I know it's, you know, the serrated stuff on the front of the slide, so that you can like load the thing instead of like cock it from the back. There's like I don't like that. The front of the slide should be smooth and classic, like the Colt 1911. And now everybody has got the little hand grip thing on the front of the gun, and I don't like it. Now, I don't care what anybody says about it. His experience is the exact opposite of mine, and mine. which makes me wonder whether my mother was getting up to something with the milkman. Because, you know, if you haven't seen it, fella, since you seem to be the kind of guy that can afford to buy whatever gun he wants, look at this Maxim 9. Just Google it and look for images of it. That's a gun I would, if I was in the States, I would almost certainly probably buy one of them. I probably want to shoot it first just to check it out, but that's a 9mm that I could see myself owning. But again, I think it's a bit too big to be a sort of good concealed carry gun. But in a zombie apocalypse, it's yeah, I think I would like it. What is this? There's something here that might be quite nice. Monsoon Tactical, Springfield. Okay, let me type that in. That looks a bit better because it's got a smooth seam. I spelled Springfield wrong. Oh, maybe that was just that one. Huh. I don't know what I saw then. Why they called it that. Ah, there we go. Monsoon Tactical. No, that's also still has the little grips at the front. Yeah, I don't like the little grips to push the slide back at the front of the slide. I just don't like it. I do not like it. I don't know why they make it like that. I mean, I do know, but anyway, I think we've reached the end of the road, boys, at about 3 hours or whatever it is that I've been going. So I'm gonna bid you good night. I'm gonna go and spade one of the cats tomorrow. So thank you all very much. I really enjoyed this one, and we'll do another one soon. Shoot me an email. Let me know what you want to talk about or which guns you want to talk about, and I'll try and answer that forever question. If you could only have one carry gun in life. Until then, good night. God bless you all.